4, 3. I just love you guys, and I appreciate you being here for us, and I appreciate you doing the things that you're doing, and I appreciate you building this. Please like this episode, as well as every other episode you do enjoy going on right now that I'm very excited about. And I see Doge, and I see the realignment of the educational system coming together for a real unique opportunity that we haven't had in a long time. And that's exciting more and more each day. It all comes back to coming back to yourself, taking your, you have 3 brains, right? You have the brain of the head, you have the brain of the heart, and you have the brain of the gut, gut instinct, right? I would love to really be able to get into some comfortable situations where we can start feeding back into the community that we haven't had in a long time. If we take the right approach, we have the ability to really dramatically affect not only the children growth, we could start turning revenues and rolling them into, for instance, here in this small town, seeing what kind of effects we have. We have coming up very shortly, as much as we should. And I think this is probably the strongest because it has emotion as well. And then those 2 signal to the brain to send out the chemicals that do the work that needs to be done according to whatever I have already talked a little bit about it with Emma on Emma Lynn and Grandpa Rod. How you doing, guys? This is Rod Duff from Insights and Straight Talk. I just wanted to let you know that as advertised, the wait is over. We have what many people have been very eager to come see. We have Dr. Estrada, and we're going to talk about a couple things today. We're going to talk about some of the truth about VSELs and about EMF and in that some of the products that he's developed over the years, because he has seen I say a couple of products. One that I don't think's even really been announced yet, and we'll get into all this later. But he's developed a product. Well, you already know he's got the silver scrubs, and that's protecting against the waves that are out in our world. And I was telling him back in the green room. And by the way, I apologize, I'm a little late here. I had a couple things we had to work through, and live is live, and so please forgive me. And we'll get through the ability to get to this data. But the silver scrubs is working and protecting people against the things that that are in our world, maybe not purposely, but logically are affecting our health in ways that we're not even necessarily aware of. And I was telling him, like I said, in the back room there, in the green room. And you're not touching the peanuts, right, Doug? Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, he says he's not. Okay. So so far I'm not going to get in trouble on that one, but he's also got a product that's really affecting people's growth, as far as their aging process. You'll see the guy's 473 years old, and he looks like he's about 20. So you can tell that he tells me he doesn't do what he should be doing, and I know that feeling. But we're finally being able to get to a point where we can start looking at I'm going to say alternative medicines, but and we all know there's holistic, where you're taking care of the whole body, and then there's traditional medicines, and both should really be considered as far as a full-throated effect in your day-to-day life. I've always said, and you guys have heard me say this multiple times, it's not just quantity, it's the quality of your life. I'd hate to be 473 years old. I'd hate to be 90 years old and just crippling around. That's not really a life. I mean, it is. Every breathing every living cell is a life, obviously, but Dr. Estrada is bringing to us today the ability to add, to that quantity and really fill in the quality parts of how we live. A couple of things I want to get to before we really start this very exciting conversation, something I've been looking forward to for weeks, and several people on the show have been, that are fans of the show, have commented religiously, waiting for today to come about, because there's some people that are going through into some of the smart cell surgery. Surgery isn't the right word, but you're gonna help me out here when you get on, Doc, and make this a much more professional conversation. But some of the people have come on and very interested in this, and I'm very interested in this. Obviously, the silver scrubs, and you'll see his hat in a second. First thing when he came on, I said, "Man, dude, I love that hat." And he turned and he showed me this is part of his product here, obviously, and then this new product that he is just out and released. He was in New York when we were a couple of weeks ago when we were doing this. He's back in San Jose in his home. Sorry about that, Ronaldo. I was wrong. He lives on the West Coast, not the East Coast, but we'll figure all that stuff out later. And before we do that, I just want to give a big thanks to the Mangum City Library. This is where we are. They're very much behind our Regeneration School project, Voices at the Table, and giving teenagers their voice. And and as you all know, we have 4 lanes in this playlist, in this show that we do here. Newsletter just dropped. First one came out 2 days ago at 2:30. We've already got, 7, 8, 9 subscribers. And in there, we're going to start doing Barbie-isms, Rod Duff and producer Barbie-isms that have been collected over the last couple of decades, literally. I'm really excited about that. And we did a show on AI yesterday. That's part of the economic AI automation, micro farming kind of channel, that new way of new money and new way of making and producing revenue. Monday we had with a nationally known teacher, and she and I were going over some of the regeneration project. Saturdays, as you know, we do Rod Duff with, Emma Lynn, co-hosted Insights and Straight Talk, co-hosted with Emma Lynn and Grandpa Rod. Just talked to her earlier today. We're getting her car all set up. She's 16, just turned. And so her and I are going through, getting that all insured out in your part of town there, Doc, except South. She's in, Southern Cal, where we're all from. And the AI is with my son, Brandon. He's in Texas. And let's see, what else do we got coming up this week? We'll go over that later, maybe at the close. For now, hey, wow, we got about 112 people on. Sorry, guys, my bad. We're a couple minutes late here. But at this point, I think it's time to bring on my new bestest friend. How do you want me to call you? Dr. Douglas? Do you want me to call you Dr. Wow. Oh, okay. Hold on. I knew it. Remember I told you about Ronaldo in the green room and what she's going through? Fun right now. When do you expect
the insurance companies?
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Don't
do that yet. Don't do that yet. I just wanted to show you. There's a dozen people I know personally that are specifically here for this show. I don't know about the rest of the audience. We got 166 now, but I knew this was going to be a very important conversation and discussion. Ronaldo, we'll get back to your question in a second. First, if you would, Doc, tell us about the journey that got you here. Give us some background so we can kind of fill the colors in between the layers,
Yeah, hi, Rod. Thanks for having me. I love what you're doing. All about the regeneration. I think that's the way to go. And instead of targeting a specific diagnosis, if we understand hey, we can heal, we can cure, we can regenerate. Our body wants to be there. You know, there's this love and compassion.
You're literally having the body heal the body through these processes, correct?
100%. Yeah, I don't do your healing. I can just set it up. I can understand, I can identify, you know, and I have philosophies that I can get into about why, you know, how we sort of assess. But I put in the signal and you have to do the healing. And that's the most beautiful thing. And my goal really is to empower people. I think we give our power away so much. We you know, outsource it. We want it from a pill or a shot, right? Like, this is going to come save you. And it's like, what I work with is your plasma. I work with literally the liquid gold. And when you pull it out, it is this most beautiful gold color. The fountain of youth is inside of you. So anyway, so yeah, I started this journey probably about 21 years ago. I had a near-death experience. That was in a really bad car accident. The car had totaled, it flipped. I remember, you know, the wheel was sort of like snatched out of my hands in this really weird, energetic way, went into a rock embankment, and the car had started to flip. And I just remember the world sort of spinning, and then I shot out of my body. And,
Wow.
you know, for not to make it overly complicated, I basically had these downloads from the creator, and I was just kind of in this space, and it was the most beautiful experience. It was nothing but love. And I realized that I was sort of wasting my life. I had a lot of sort of talents and gifts. I was always kind of, you know, smart, and school was very easy. So I'm very blessed that way. And I understand you don't judge the genius of a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree, right? But you know, so that was just something that was sort of, yeah, I think it was Einstein that quoted that. But yeah, so you know, so I basically was offered the chance to leave or come or stay, and I was like, boy, wait a minute, I had this, you know, I always had this sense of empathy. I always was able to sort of like feel things and taste things. I'm a what's called a synesthetic or a super taster. I can sort of taste people's emotions, their color, their light. There's images with that. I would people would have like a hurt elbow or something like that, and I would just instinctively touch it. And there's like, oh, yeah, that kind of does feel better. And I would walk away and my elbow would hurt, you know? So it was like that sort of thing. Or if someone had a stomach ache, I would just be feeling it. It's like, why does my stomach hurt? And then someone would be like, oh, you know, I'm sick. I had this stuff. And so there was a lot of weird stuff when I grew up. And so I realized that, you know, as I sort of was at, you know, that was about, like I said, I was 21 at the time, I believe. And I don't think of age that way, because ultimately we're really infinite. We're living this human experience, but we're spiritual beings, right? And so I decided to stay. I was like, well, I'm on a mission. I didn't realize that I forgot why I came here. And part of that really was understanding, like, I have, you know, you have to figure out your purpose, your gifts. My gifts were healing. I was able to help people see that and empower people and heal them based on that sort of empathy that I was sort of, you know, I had that was really strong in me. So so anyway, I got home. I called my parents. They helped me out. They got me home, and you know, I had all this adrenaline, right? All this epinephrine, right? This adrenaline from that car accident. When I got back into my body, the car was completely smashed. It was lights, it was car parts everywhere, and the roof was caved in. I had to sort of push the roof up and open the door. And when I got out, I looked at the car, and it was on all four tires, as if it were gently placed on the right lane. I wish I would have taken a picture, because the physics of it don't make any sense. You know, and I had a full ride. I had a full ride for physics and engineering, and I'm telling you, like, the physics made no sense. And so anyway, I got home. My parents like helped me clean it up. We had a guy with a tow truck or whatever. This was like 2:00 in the morning. I won't get into all the details. I wasn't drunk, but it was just one of those things. You're young, and you know. So anyway, I woke up the next day, and the left side of my body was on fire, and I couldn't move it. So I was on 10 out of 10 pain, just electrical fire. And I was, you know, sort of like numb from about my nose down on the left side of my body. And it was the most horrible feeling. I had such a limited range of motion, maybe 15 or 20 degrees. And with this pinch feeling in the middle of my neck, at the base of my neck. So it took me a while to kind of get up. I called my mom. She took me to the ER. They fast-tracked me into the orthopedic surgeon. And he wanted to do a dual discectomy, which is taking 2 discs out and replacing them with composite discs, which is pretty barbaric if you think about it. Instead of trying to preserve what you have, like, well, let's just rip that out. Let's put these plastic ones in, which, you know, could have left me paralyzed. It could have left me partially numb. You know, they almost always will need fusions and stuff down the road, because they go in there, they nip, they nick the ligaments, and they affect the structurality where it's just not as solid. And you're kind of dealing with stuff the rest of your life, you know, from that point forward, you know. And, you know, they're more and more elegant now, but, you know, one of the goals of my life is really just getting people out of the surgical table, like off the surgical table, out of the surgery, Most surgeries are not absolutely necessary, it turns out, and I could give you different statistics, but generally like 20 to 40% are really absolutely necessary, and the rest are not. I mean, and the thing is, we know so much more about the body's ability to heal now than probably ever, and part of it's just faith in your ability to heal, but that's another story. And
well, we were talking about, and right to your point there, we were talking about earlier, and we do a lot of discussions on this, and thank goodness there's experts in the world, because I know a little tiny bit about a lot of different things, and in what you're talking about now, you're kind of talking about needing both. Let's call it traditional medicine or surgeries and so forth, and then holistic medicine, where you're really bringing back to yourself. And that's what this show is all about, is working on yourself from the inside out, but more importantly, relying on yourself, as that comes along. So go ahead with your story, and I love this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to do the healing. It doesn't matter whether there's a surgeon or not. They can cut and they can staple and they can screw, but you still have to recover. You have to go through that, right? And so anyway, yeah. My mom, they scheduled the surgery for 5 days later. We had too much intracranial pressure. They wanted the inflammation to come down. It was like, look, you need to wait, get the muscle relaxers. They, the Tylenol #3 with codeine. So they had some opiates in there, and Flexeril and all this stuff. And it just made me sicker. I never actually did well with most pharmaceuticals. I always kind of felt sick or angry, like it was something foreign in my system, And I just, like I said, I'm a little bit sensitive that way, right? But turns out there's a reason for all that. And so we scheduled. I had the surgery scheduled. My mom said, "Look, I'm going to take you to this healer woman. She was from the church that we were going to at the time, and she's known as a curandera, which is El Salvador shaman. So she was traditionally trained, handed down from
what was that name again? What was the name again? Curandera.
Curandera, like cure, like curandera.
Curandera.
Like Curan, curandera, DERA. And so it's just a traditional, she may be known as a shaman, but a natural healer who was just, trained from the generational, passing down of that. And so I went to her, that I think the afternoon after the doctor's appointment, when we scheduled the dual discectomy, the 2 disc removal. And she, I went to her house, and it was very unseeming. You didn't really, know what was going on. And you walk into this house in this neighborhood, and there's really not even a lot of cars or anything anywhere. And I walk in, and there's like 25 people on top of each other. They're literally just sitting in her living room, like on the floor, like everywhere. And I'm like dragging the left side of my body. Now I'm barely walking. I'm just, just miserable, pale, can't really talk. When you're in that much pain, everything sucks. Everything's a blur. You're in a fog. You can't think. And you'll do almost anything to get out of it. It's like, hey, this will help. Like, yeah, I'll take that. It's like, cause you don't have the discernment, you're just trying to get out of the pain and, praying for something. Right. And, so I had the surgery scheduled. I was like, look, we're going to have to do surgery. I was not looking forward to it at all. And, so I go, and then someone kind of gives me their chair, cause I'm clearly in some distress. And, this little old lady, just comes like, walking out in the back room, and kind of scans the room and looks around. It's like, okay, you, next person. And so she picked like 2 or 3 people. And then finally they scanned and then saw me. It's like, oh no, her eyes got all big. It's like, okay, come with me. So she skipped, through all these people. That was her system. She would just kind of feel who needed it to be next. And so I went into her back room, and she just kind of looked at me. She's like, you are messed up, kid. Like, what did you do? Told her the story. And she's like, okay, well, look, I'm going to see how, where the nerves are at. And she started kind of tapping my hand, and it would just light me up even more. And she's like, okay, and let me tap your fingers. So she tapped my fingers, and I was like, what are you doing? And she was just giving these weird electric jolts in there. And she said, estoy besando los nervios. I'm kissing the nerves. This is how we wake them up. I'm like, okay, great. Can you stop? Does it hurt? She's like, okay, here, take this. And she gives me 3 things. She gives me fish oil, vitamin C, and green pills, just phytonutrients. Like, I don't even know what they were. There's spirulina and broccoli, chlorella or something, just green pills. And I was like, how much do I take? She said, take as much as you can tolerate. Basically, just until you have diarrhea, just keep taking, every 3 hours. Every 3 hours, take handfuls. I'm like, great. Okay, fine. That seemed to make more sense. I took, to a dose that actually started to help. And then, every 3 hours, I was just taking massive handfuls of this stuff. And it started to work after about the second, third dose. My pain was 10 out of 10, coming down 8 out of 10, And I was like, okay, she's on to something here.
Nice.
And I slowly would increase my range of motion, but everything still was, it hurt, and I just couldn't move. I couldn't make a fist. I was drooling on myself because I couldn't seal my lips all the way. And she's like, okay, well, what do I do now? So I come back tomorrow. So I went back every day. And so every day she kept, tapping the nerve, and she would go a little bit higher, a little bit higher. The day before the surgery, she got up to about my, my collarbone here, my clavicle. And she said, when's your surgery? I told her it's tomorrow. She said, well, you're not quite ready, but you're not going to need it. Looks me right in the eye, says you're not going to need the surgery. And it's just this confidence and this trust all of a sudden, because everything she said was true. It just worked, and I was just like, in complete faith of this. And, she said, get on your belly and take your shirt off. So she actually had to help me take my shirt off. I was probably in the same clothes the whole time. I don't really remember. I couldn't shower. I couldn't lie down backwards. I had to kind of sleep, which was horrible, in a rocking chair, because if I went back far enough, that pinched nerve would just feel like it was going to snap. And so yeah, it was miserable. Yeah, it was just a horrible. I don't wish this upon anybody. And that's actually one of my life's goals, is to get people out of pain. I love getting people out of pain, and reframing that, because sometimes you have to reframe it as well. But so she gets me on my belly, and she says, okay, take a few deep breaths in. So I take 3 big deep breaths in. On the 4th breath, she adjusts me. So it's shoves the disc back into place. My pain then was a 4 out of 10. It spikes 10 out of 10. And I was like, oh crap. I thought it was done. I thought that was the move. And then it just disappeared. It literally just floated out of me through my fingertips. I could feel it. And that left side just came back online. And it was just when your foot falls asleep and it wakes up, it's just kind of all right, pins and needles, and now it's coming back online. And all of a sudden I had full range of motion. I had zero pain, completely gone. And, in this time, and I could walk, I could feel, and I could I felt the drool. That's how I knew I couldn't seal my lips. I felt it for the first time after she adjusted my neck. I could feel the little wet. It was how long was I drooling on myself, And no one was saying anything. I was just miserable. You don't even care. You know what I mean? You're in so much pain, and nothing really matters. And so, yeah, I ended up, the next day was the surgery. They had a pre-op x-ray. I didn't want to even go in. My mom said, no, you go in, get an evaluation. They do the x-ray. Let's see what the doc says. All right. So I went in, got my x-ray at 7 a.m. or something. The surgery, I think, was at 7:30, or maybe it was 8. The guy didn't come back to 9 or 9:30. He just takes this sweet time. He comes in, closes the door. It's well, it looks like we're not going to need the surgery today. Okay, lets out a sigh. He was notably disappointed. And he said sometimes these things fix themselves.
Get his surgery money, huh?
Well, it turns out it was a $75,000 surgery in this kind of a country town in Virginia, so it was kind of a big deal, And I was just so glad. I laughed out loud. It was an LOL moment, and then I was like, thanks, doc. I'm out. So I was just happy to be alive and be here. And slowly the pieces started aligning for me. I was looking at, okay, look, I had these gifts. I could feel it. I was told it. I was downloaded this, and everything started to click. Everything started to make sense, and then I became very coherent. And then I found the naturopathic. Well, I found the alternative medicine route. I found a bachelor's program that had, which I don't like that term, because even that term is bastardized, because it's not alter to nature, right? It's not against or opposite of nature. What I do is actually native. It's native medicine. It should be called native medicine or integrative. I love that term better. But
does that name also, does it lend into what I was talking about, or was I off base there with holistic, where it's the whole body?
So it's very holistic, totally. Yeah. So 100% holistic. Okay. Yeah. And that's what nature is. Nature is holistic. Nature is Correct. The ecosystems within ecosystems within bigger ecosystems, so we yes. all are co-creating this nature, this reality together. We're all a part of this. Yeah, there's this oneness that keeps, as above, so below, if you want to get into that. But, there's just oneness to everything.
What was that? Wait. Whoa. I want to hear about this. Well, I do want to get into it now. Thank you for saying so. What was the word you used? And then build it. Let's hover here for a minute, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Before you
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is that you were just talking about?
So there's this principle, as above, so below, and it basically describes the fractal nature of the reality. Because as you look small enough, it looks like outer space. You look big enough, it's outer space, right? So everything's just kind of repeat. There's all these repeating patterns at different levels, right? And that's that's the fractal reality, and you can get into Nassim Haramehn's work and all. There's some really cool physicists, trying to explain this and describe this, and there's really cool physics coming out of that in quantum metaphysics and in quantum biophysics, and that's kind of where I come in with some of the VSELs and the lasers, when we get to that part. But
yes.
Yeah, so I started that journey. I just started studying, and that was a program that went into homeopathic medicine, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, tons of nutrition, tons of lifestyle. Yeah, and to your point, very holistic. The whole point was, we're looking at the entire person. We're not treating diagnosis. We're trying to understand the functionality of these systems within bigger systems, and then higher down that road, as I went further down that journey, I really realized it was such a consciousness thing. There's so much to what we believe that is affecting ourselves even more so than the physical, than the matter, the material. Yes, you need supplements. Yes, you need nutrition. What you really need is electricity, right? You need electric voltage. Why would you go alkaline? Why does an alkaline diet help cure, fix or make cancer go away or better or easier? Is because you have electric voltage. You cannot heal if you don't have electricity. So alkaline is electrons donating. Right. And when there's a lot of EMF out there buzzing and causing oxidative stress, it decreases your ability to have efficient calcium gated signaling, just efficient communication from an electrical conductive perspective.
Hey, hang on right here, if you would. We talk a lot, and this is interesting. So I agree with you 100. Not that it matters, but I agree with you 100% that the body is, we are actually electricity, and I'll expand on that in a second. Literally the point where I've heard people say that just your brain or your whole body, if you use the power coming out of that we generate in our bodies, it would light a house or a small town for a week, or a house for a week, a small town for a couple of days, something like that. But incredible amounts of energy. Now, what we do talk about, and then just give me another second here, I apologize. I talk about a vibe, right? And that's 6 feet out, you're sending, your body sends that out. That's why you can kind of feel somebody that's coming up behind you. It's not a spidey sense. It's that energy, right? Is that what you're going at right now?
Well, so yes, what you're describing basically is the biofield, right? We have a field of energy that sort of resonates out. We call the biofield, and they say that horses have 5 times the biofield of humans, and that's why these horses for therapy, just being around a healthy horse, and they're grounded, but that will improve your health and your status, and it calms kids with autism, it calms the nervous system, it calms these things because they are holding that space. So, and 6 feet is kind of the average, and go figure, you want to stand 6 feet away from each other, so you're just outside of that, in these crazy COVID days. There's a reason for that. I thought that was the reason more than because it's based off of nothing, that whole 6 foot thing.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
That's so it was based on something.
You had to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah. Why exactly 6 feet? Right. And so yeah, but some people will have it larger or smaller. We literally will shut down, and the more we condense and more depressed we are, we might start to, try to shrivel up, and we become less ourselves. We live in a time now of identity crisis. People, don't really remember who they are, where they're going. They want to confuse you about gender and identity and all these sort of conversations. And it's like they instead of, trying to figure out who you are and what's within you, what's inside of you, they want to tell you that you're wrong, the way that you're born is wrong, or that you have to take this external thing constantly, to be better, to be strong, to be healthy at all. And then when that doesn't work, we'll give you more external things, and you're just chasing the side effects of these things that you're taking instead of understanding from a base perspective.
We talk about this as well. You're doing very well, because I'm abrupting you at certain points. I appreciate your help with this. We talk about this, big ag and big pharma. It feels like they just use us back and forth. They send us back and forth. We eat crappy foods. There's even dyes we're discovering now that are illegal in the rest of the world that are put into our cereals.
Yeah. Our food can't be sold in most of the first world countries. They won't take our food. They won't take our meat. They won't take our products. They're illegal. It's like, hello, red flag, anybody? Hello, Exactly. We don't want this in our children, but you go ahead and keep eating that and feeding it to all your kids, putting it in the schools.
And then you take a pill when you're sick. And we got a pill for you when you're sick, and then another one when you need that, and then another one, and an opiate. I'm saying it wrong. Opiates, and that's what we live in, where we're being tossed back and forth. And of course, the money, they're just sucking money out of us. Cheap food.
It's membership to sickness. Yeah, it's an illness membership.
Damn, dude,
that's what they
go
want.
on. Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Go
and
on.
you know, they've stated this. This is, they don't hide it. They want people on 3 or 4 medications. They want you on a statin. They want you on a beta blocker. They want you on metformin. You know, they kind of like to try 3 or 4 that everyone's supposed to be on for life. You know, and it's a revolving door because like they literally don't get you out of the situation. So if anything, it's spiraling down
On purpose.
spiraling
on
up.
Purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
by design.
on purpose.
By
It's not
design.
about, it's by design.
You know?
It's not
like,
about,
why do all these people
it's about
want these
churning money?
Right, absolutely. And why do people want all these GLP-1s, right? So have you heard about semaglutide and tirzepatide, and there's this, you know, big fad.
Start with GLP-1. I don't know any of what you just said.
Oh, okay. So there was a South Park episode that explains everything. You can find the semaglutide
that's a brilliant
episode.
show. I'm sorry, but
They nailed it on that one.
And I don't watch it. They nail it so many times. You go back 20 years and you see stuff that they predicted would be coming up in 20 years by the cartoon. And I mean, my God, there's some brilliant people in that show.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Between them and the Simpsons, you know, you can kind of tell the future, you know, go backwards far enough.
I'm with you, brother. Go ahead.
So look, okay, so these are gets into the peptide conversation, and I just started making some peptides on my own because they just don't make the ones that I want, so I'm making my own. But there's
you know what?
peptides.
Talk about that during this talk about silver scrubs. We'll get to, but talk about that peptide during this conversation because I think I want it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sure, yeah, you probably do. Look, I'm biased, obviously, but I think that there's a time and a place for that in anyone's journey. But so the peptides are, you know, they're basically short proteins. So proteins are basically 51 amino acids of length or longer. Peptides are 50 or less, typically by definition. But they're like mini proteins. And what they do is they signal a system to typically ramp up or shut down. Usually they're ramping up a system. So like BPC-157 will tell your body to make more collagen, and so you can regenerate better. Your tissue healing or remodeling is much higher. You know, Joe Rogan has talked about these things, but there's, you know, hundreds of different peptides. One of the, you know, the major sellers right now are semaglutide, tirzepatide. They're what known as GLP-1 agonists. So they affect this your blood sugar metabolism and your ability to digest and your motility. So how fast, you know, your food transits through your gut, and so basically paralyzes your gut if you take high doses of it. Which, if used well, is extremely effective. But there's a lot of dumb ways to take it, and I think a lot of people take it sloppy, and you know, a lot of doctors are handing it out like candy. So there's a time and a place. I mean, I obviously speak with a professional. This is not medical advice necessarily, you know, but the reason being is that, you know, everyone's so fat. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but we have so much more adipose than we've ever had. You know, we're like, you know, what we're saying is we eat sick. You're swimming in a toxic soup. You know, as you know, from the water, from the air, from the soil, the nutrition in the food is very deplete. They heavily spray it. It's frankenfood. A lot of it's, you know, GMO modified, so where your body doesn't even really recognize it anymore. So it's not sure if it's energy or not. And so what do? We store fat as a rebound. You know, we store, and then there's all of these things that affect your blood sugar metabolism. And so people's, you know, blood sugar dysregulation, which is a master signal for your hormones, absolutely, for your circadian rhythms, because your cortisol wakes you up in the morning. But if you're spiking sugar all night long, well, you burn through that, and then you're dragging in the morning because you don't have that spike in the brain.
That's interesting.
So there's definitely, you know, so GLP-1s in just about any American will be very effective, at least at the right dose, because this is so dysregulated in the United States. And if you see most people's tongue, they'll have a white coating because most people have a little bit of candida. Well, at least that's a sign of you know, too much blood sugar dysregulation. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh wow, I so much want to look at my tongue right now. I can't do it obviously, but I so much want to, because I know what you're talking about. I mean, folks out there. By the way, we have almost 400 people on, 380 people on right now. Yeah, yeah. So great stuff. And by the way, since there are 379 people on, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 10,000. People, look at your tongue. I mean, the things you just went through are fascinating, that we see every day, but we have no idea what our body's now telling us. You know, your blood sugar spiking all through the night. Now you wake up groggy. You shouldn't, right? If you've had a decent amount of sleep, you should be able to, the body's made this way, but because of all that we're eating and the air, all this stuff not being grounded, boy, there's so many things. We should have a whole series on the 15 different things you talked about that all interact. I mean, they do, right? They all interact.
Well, and you can isolate them, right? Yeah, and you can isolate it, but we're swimming. It's a soup. I mean, we're everything all the time. And then EMF is just this constant buzz. And then we put our cell phones even closer to our heart, right? Which is an electroconductor, electrical, that's where our biofuel is really generating out of our heart, and then people wear, these wearables all the time. They want you to wear wearables, right? Like, I don't think that that's wise. There's EMF there, it's great to have biometric tracking. Like, that's cool. We can learn a lot from that. But to do it all the time, constantly, it's like wearing a little cell phone buzz. The Bluetooth things, people, I always plug in. I never use Bluetooth because that's a whole nother, you might as well have your phone up to your ear. It's like you're not really saving much of that radiation. It's milder, but it is milder typically, but you're still, now you're talking for 2 hours. Oh, because it's Bluetooth, it's safe. My phone's over there. It's not true. It's not safe, right? People are sleeping with their phones next to their heads, right? So this is causing oxidative stress, and the more stress you have, the more you age, right? It's literally 1-to-1. The more oxidative stress and the inability to have antioxidants. Why are antioxidants so important? Because they mitigate the fire. It's like putting out the fire, and the more fire that you have with oxidative stress, it's like rust, your blood rust, the thicker your blood is with blood sugar dysregulation, it doesn't circulate well. That's why you have cold hands, cold feet, cold brain, hair loss, poor erections for men, poor circulation, poor orgasms for women, It's like there's so much to talk about in that conversation. So I make a peptide that you said to plug my peptide. So I just made this peptide. It's called the Warrior Blend. It's 7 peptides in one. There's my little logo, Rejuvenate. I trademarked
Hold on,
that.
I'm going to take myself off.
So there's my little peptide blend, Rejuvenate. It's, I just off the press. It's 7 peptides in one. It helps your, this is not medical advice, it's for research purposes only, but it is designed to improve, growth hormone status, your really bring up your whole endocrine system to work a little bit better. And it also has some
I know BPC. This term. What's endocrine? Sorry,
your hormones.
I know I'm exposing my ignorance. Okay, hormones.
Yeah, no, well, that's what this is about, right?
Balancing off your hormones, right?
Yeah, so the endocrine system is your hormone. So that's going to be your pineal gland, your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, your thyroid, your thymus, your adrenals, and your testes in men, ovaries in women. So that's your endocrine system. They all talk to each other, and there's this giant feedback loop that tells when you have enough of it, this goes down. It's like a seesaw. But when you're taking it externally, the whole system goes down. And when men take testosterone, their testicles shrink. Why? Because it tells them, hey, take a hike. I got this. You don't need to do your work. And then so why would you expel more energy there? Because the body's already probably in a deficit anyway. Because are we getting enough sunlight? Are we getting enough oxygen, water? Are we grounding? Are we electric, right? Do we have, so if you're taking external things, well, testosterone is awesome. It'll band-aid everything. So, for 6 months or a year, you might have a honeymoon phase. You may not even get sick. You'll have muscle. You'll feel awesome because you went from low to medium or normal. But it can band-aid or it can sort of mask a lot of really important things. However, it's going to atrophy the testicles. And then if it atrophies or lowers blood flow, meaning it shrinks, that part of the brain will also get less blood flow and less it will shrink too. Right. It's if you don't use it, you lose it situation. And if you're just getting it externally all the time. So peptides, they work as a signal in the brain when used correctly. And I don't mean to overly sweep and just say every peptide's this way. But generally speaking, the idea, the way I like to use them is to give the brain the signal like, hey, ramp up the whole system. Don't take a hike. Man, we want you to wake up. So that's kind of the difference between taking testosterone or taking something way upstream that is the peptide signal, which we make naturally. We make hundreds and hundreds of them. We have, probably a thousand different ones, but in our body internally that we don't even know about yet. But most of them are, based on natural, peptides or small amino acid chains or mini proteins, if you will, that our body's making naturally. Like the one BPC that Joe Rogan talks about, it's good for joints. Like, athletes take this and they heal way, way faster. They found that in the gut, body protection compound, because the gut has all this collagen turnover. And, this is a signal that makes a lot of collagen. So we just take that out and you can put it, in joints. You can put it in your, you take it as an injection or you can take it orally as well. But anyway, that's a whole other
You said in yours, you take a little, you have a little syringe and you pinch a full.
Correct. Yeah. It's like a little insulin.
I do have, there you go. Okay. So it's like an insulin. It's like
Yeah,
an
it's a little
insulin.
insulin, a baby little needle. You barely feel
Yeah.
it. You get used to it, and it's like, the results are so much worth it. So anyway,
Yeah,
but
we're gonna talk in the green room. I gotta do some tests on you there, on your product. Also talk, since we're in this moment. I got like, I don't know how many 20 questions I haven't even looked at yet, but let's talk about your hat and the whole process, because earlier we talked. There it is. Earlier we were talking about the electricity part, and we kind of went through that, and I know this is, I know you didn't want to plug your products and I don't want to get off of what we're talking about here at all, because this is layers of stuff that me and certainly the 400 people that are on are deficit in knowing some of this a lot, basically all of this information. So let's spend a moment here and just hover on your silver scrubs and what you're working against as I listen to you on my Bluetooth earphones, which now I'm really scared because my brain is at the top anyway, and I got these electrons shooting through my, whatever, through my head here, as I got one on each side. Go ahead.
The buzz, yeah, absolutely.
Look,
EMF is everywhere. I mean, we have cell phones, we have Wi-Fi, they're putting up 5G towers everywhere, and they're still trying to figure out whether it causes cancer or not. Like, it's not whether it causes cancer. What it does is it's a buzz. It buzzes your cells. It's zapping them and causes oxidative stress. And that's not even to get into conspiracies of what you can put on a frequency. You can put information. You can make someone happy or sad or angry on frequency. You can ride that EMF, and it actually directs
there's
people,
actually a weapon the military has that uses that.
Absolutely, yeah, and you can use it
the
to
weapon is the sound.
Yeah, it's sound. I mean, so there's a lot that you can do with frequencies, and we use it for healing too. So you can use it in ways that, we know that 40 hertz gamma, if you have a light that flickers at 40 hertz, it improves your memory. They found this with mice. The mice were, winning, and they were getting faster and faster times. And then when you do it with humans, they score better on memory tests. They score better on mini mental status exams. Just having something 40 hertz, right? That's gamma brainwave. So we have different brainwave states. We have alpha, beta, delta, theta, and gamma, right? And so, we want delta and theta for deep sleep. And so you can entrain your brain listening to, it's called binaural beats, or when you have headphones on, hopefully with the wire, that has two different tones in your ear. And then it will cause your brain to sync into delta or theta state. When monks are meditating, they're typically in a really deep theta state. And that's when you can get some deep regeneration between delta and theta. Gamma would be like your flow state. So if you're flicking at 40 hertz, you're going to be in a better flow state. And there's different products and stuff. I don't want to talk too much about that, but you can just go to YouTube and say gamma hertz or 40 hertz binaural BINAURAL and listen, and your brain within a minute to 90 seconds will sync into that, and you can have better focus. If you're doing alpha waves will give you more focus and working memory. Gamma will get you access to your deeper memory and just being able to process information faster. 50 hertz can.
Let me hold on here, man. Dude, man, there's like, you're blowing my mind here, literally. I'm going to write this down. What is the 40 hertz? What?
40 hertz.
You spelled it.
Binaural binaural beats. So BINAURAL. And by mean you have to have two different. You have to have headphones. If you just put it ambiently, it's called monaural, like one, binaural two. So you have two different tones. Yeah, so you have to have headphones to do it properly. But you can get that similar just by having a frequency in a room. Now you can put like the Schumann resonance in a room, and people will feel more grounded. They'll feel more at peace. There's something. So we can use it for healing. But we also need to understand that we're berated by, this is just, there's a barrage, I guess is the word, of this buzz constantly. And it can affect your skin. Your skin won't heal as well. It just won't be as hydrated. There's just these little things, but it certainly affects your endocrine system, right? What we just talked about. We know that it affects fertility. People are putting it right on their testicles. I'm sorry, but that's stupid. Gentlemen, get your cell phone away from your testicles, away from your prostate. That is not intelligent. You have to be wise about this, because we are in a fertility crisis as well. while we're losing our identities,
we're
also, men have literally 40% of the testosterone their grandfathers did. And their sperm, if you look at the sperm under the microscope, oh my God, it's sad. They like look retarded, literally. They're just like slapping each other. They are not what they used to be. So even the quality has gone down. The quality of the sperm, the motility, and then the amount of testosterone. So yeah, no wonder people are looking for it externally. Men is, looking for it externally, but it just affects women too. It makes women more masculinized. Have you looked around lately? There's more of this, because they're also kind of picking up the slack, in my opinion, of the masculine feminine dynamic, where the masculine, typically are better at discerning. They're better at the protective provider. They're sort of built that way. And we all have masculine feminine dynamics within ourselves, right? As above, so below. As the external, True. We also have that internal. And so, but women are sort of doing the job that they weren't necessarily fully designed to do, and they're doing a great job. God bless them. But my point is that we're not necessarily, we're shifting roles in a way that, allows a lot of insanity to happen, right? Like having litter boxes in schools is insanity. That's not okay, right? Because these kids are not cats, right? You can play pretend, that's fine, but you're not a cat, right? So this should not be brought. True. This should not be brought into the schools, right? And it's typically the masculine. This is the line you do. Hey, that's silly. We're not doing that. It's that simple. But they allowed it to happen. And now, okay, 2 years later, we're fixing it. But you get my point. I think that
100%.
So 100%. It all is adding up. It's all very bioaccumulative, And the more stress you have on the testes, well, your testosterone's down, and then we're depressed, and we're not getting up, and we're not even being our true self. We're not earning as much. We're not learning as much. We're not having like the greatest sex of our lives like we should be, because that's fun too, right? We have to, we have to consider like where we want to optimize. What are the low hanging fruits? That's why I made these, here, silver. Silverware is my company. I developed silver scrubs. I'm a co-founder with my partner Jim Zovi, awesome friend of mine. And we've had him go to China a couple times. During the tariffs, we're trying to figure out all this. But we're getting these products right now. We have scrubs. We're finalizing our 2.0 fabric, so it's lighter, and we just did testing. We're going to put this probably on the website, silverware.com, SLVRWEAR.com.
By the way, a little bit later, so it's later in the comments. There's a private chat. I don't know if you're on. If you can put it in the comments, put it in. But you'll probably have to put it in the private chat. I'll copy and paste it over. So, because you know how it is. I mean, you've done podcasts, and sometimes a year later, a minute later, after the show's gone, whatever, people are coming on and saying, "Man, I wanted to ask. I wonder what the doc meant by this. Dr. Estrada meant by this, or that, whatever it is." And I'll see the red light on the private chat, and a little bit later, because we still have a ton of questions to go through, I will put that in there so that people can contact you directly, and your website, email, or any of the contact information. Guarantee there's going to be a lot of interest coming through. I see that came in there. I appreciate that. So the products that you're doing, you've got 2.0 where it's a thinner product. But where all? I was telling you about one of my friends who was asking about this episode coming up. She actually has like the dog collar for her dog, and they wear them in different products because there's a lot of people that are starting to become aware. And by the way, that 5.0 towers, there's a lot of conspiracy that possibly these things might be used for, like you said, you're putting things into the sound and having us do things that maybe we normally wouldn't have, be more submissive and blah, 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 blah. But to my point, you've got the hat, that's obvious. The shirt is that. I mean, what is your products? What's your full product line? And I know it's for the EFT.
Yeah, so I make the hats, right? So I got these hats. They're made with real silver. I'll send you one after the show.
Do please, 100%.
Yeah, so made with real silver, and the silver creates a physical shield, right? So you can see that nice little silver in there.
I do.
Yeah, so it creates a physical shield, and we can literally test it, right? You can't test these products in the same way. There are some that maybe harmonize or mitigate the effects. This does something called attenuation, meaning it kind of blocks and it spreads, So it really mitigates and minimizes it. And so on the other side of the physical shield it's 0.000001 EMF that gets through. And so we just tested our scrubs. So I make scrubs. So for frontline workers, for people, I'm a doctor. I want nurses and doctors and people who are in the healthcare to be extra guarded, because they're the ones exposed to a lot of EMF in the facilities and clinics.
Lot more everybody else, right?
A lot. And they put 5G towers on hospitals. One of the first things they did during the lockdowns, so they put 5G towers on as many hospitals as they could. They're all very close to them, and they have tons of boosted signals, Wi-Fi, all of the devices, the machines, the scanning devices, MRIs, X-rays, all this kind of stuff. They leave residual EMF smog even after they're used. And people don't really realize that. And so it makes them more tired, more wired, more likely to make mistakes, likely to get sick more often. And guess what? Silver is antimicrobial, right? So silver, it will ward off the evil and the werewolves, but there's something to that. So we tested our fabric. Nothing can grow on it right now. So everything we tested, zero growth. There was streptococcus, staph infections, nothing, coronavirus, hepatitis, nothing would grow on it. So they tried doing all this culture on it. And because it's silver, it's antimicrobial naturally. So you're getting a two-part effect. You're getting antimicrobial effect. So these people coming home in hospitals are going to be shedding less than they would otherwise without the silver, right? They're going to have less transfer, and they're going to be, have more energy. They're going to typically sleep better, is what we hear. We hear a lot of people saying, well, I didn't realize that just wearing this all day would allow me to sleep better. I feel more recovered. I have more energy. So if you have, 5 less sick days a year, what is that worth to a hospital? But having more alert, energetic staff, nurses, doctors, frontline people, it's going to give you more confidence. These people are going to just be sharper, and they're not going to get sick. They're going to recover better, and you have to pick your battles. Where you're at, you have to kind of, do the most you can. I love it because it creates a physical shield. We know that it blocks it. We can test it. We've tested it in a lab. There's no question. It's not like, oh, this little sticker, is it really doing anything? Well, does it stop your cell phone signal? No. Well, then, if you wrap it, so we make cell phone pouches as well. We make cell phone pouches, which is like a Faraday bag. You wrap it in the Faraday bag. Let's see if I don't have one super handy. I should have brought one, but it's a pouch. You put it in the Faraday bag and wrap it up sealed. It will shut down the signal. Your cell phone will stop working. Why? Because it physically works. We can test it. We can prove it. So it was really important to me to have scientific evidence of this. And then we tested from an immunological lab in Tijuana, actually, that they did the culturing, then nothing would grow on. So we're very happy with it, because it's really awesome product. And, that was kind of the major target, was frontline workers.
You need to express mail that to me.
And we make blankets. We make large and small blankets. We make like baby blankets that are really cool. I take these on the airplanes. So this is good for your lap, if you're putting your cell phone, or your if you're on your cell phone, we'll cover your boys, and women cover your eggs, cover your ovaries. It's got a little hood there, for the baby. So you can check it out on the website. It's really cool.
Wow, that's very cool.
I travel with it. They always have to pat me down. They always have to, if I put my bag in the X-ray machine, because I put my my blanket there, they have to pull it out because they can't see through it. They literally can't see through it. So it's kind of fun going through the TSA. I usually get a opt out to pat down, but I've been testing it. So, I don't know if people know that, but you can opt out. You don't have to go through that scanner, and that is a big dose all at once.
Really?
By the way, yeah.
You don't have to go through the scanner?
You say, I want to opt out, or I'd like a pat down, and they'll say opt out, and they'll kind of try to pull you to the side, and sometimes you have to wait. So if you have the time, you should do it. And you can opt out of that camera too. Like, that's an opt out. You don't have to do that. There's so many things that people to talk about.
I had no idea.
But you got to protect yourself where you can. And so if you go into the scanner with this, and some scanners are a little stronger than others, but it'll yellow out. It'll kind of block out. I had my nurse with me. We just traveled back from the East Coast, and she was wearing the hat, and they could not see her brain. They could not, so they say, oh, what's going on under your head? We have to pat down your head. So they made her take off the hat, and they were patting down, because there's a big yellow block there when you go through the scanner, because it literally, it works. It physically works, and they can't even see in most of the TSA scanners. And then they're all a little bit different, but generally, we've seen that it'll block out, and you don't get zapped. They can't see it. They're not zapping your brain.
Oh, dang
so
it.
It's fun.
Sorry about that, dude. That took longer. I was trying to copy your stuff over here.
So we're working
you want to get into?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. But we got to get to some questions here in a minute too. But go ahead.
Yeah. So please, if you want, check out the website. The scrubs, we had a 2.0 version, so we're still doing pre-orders. We got about 60 days probably for delivery. We're working on that we're waiting on the patents before we let it all flood the market here. But we do have the blankets, we have the pouches, we have the hats.
What are you waiting on? Hold on. What are you waiting on the patents for that you're not releasing yet? The blankets? Is that what you said or not?
The scrubs. So
the scrubs.
We make scrubs. Gotcha. Yeah, we make tops and bottoms for the frontline workers. But we have the blankets. There we go. We have the pouches. We have the hats. We're developing some shirts right now. We've got a few other products in the mix.
Ooh.
But we wanted to make sure it was scientifically backed and proven, and that's why we're kind of going that route. And we have the testing. We just passed testing, but to have 99.9% blocking up to 50 gigahertz, and I've not seen anything on the market that powerful so far. So. But yeah. What was the? Sorry, did I miss your question?
Yeah, no. We're good. There's so much. I mean, I've been excited about this. Well, a lot of people obviously have been excited about this topic for a little while, and as we're talking, I mean, there's like 4 or 5 other shows that have gone through my head here that we could just focus on. And there's a lot of interest, as you see here from Daniel. Absolutely fascinating topic. How did you, obviously, Dr. Estrada, first discover this healing approach? And I think it comes out of what a little bit earlier. This question actually came in before your story on the car accident with Ronalda, and she's got about a half a dozen questions here. We'll get with her in a second. But I wanted to pop up Daniel's here. And is there anything that you wanted to add in that? But I'm assuming that your recovery from the car accident, from the healer that you went to, really had a big effect on you in your direction, because I mean, you were educated engineering and a whole nother direction, and you're kind of going down this path now. Am I right in that assumption, or where do we go with that?
Yeah, well, I was always a little bit different. And so I always wanted to do things differently. I always kind of challenged people. I was just never accepted the things that they said because it always sounded a little bit off. And it turns out most everything you've ever learned is wrong, but that's a whole nother story,
Yeah.
And so I kind of had like a BS radar that was strong early on. And so I kind of, picked at that and was trying to do things differently. But yeah, I mean, once I found out what VSELs are about 10, 11 years ago or so. I was in medical school. So I knew that there was something that the body could do just to regenerate because I saw it in myself and I saw it in other people. I started doing prolotherapy actually originally, which is proliferative therapy. And that's usually doing injections with dextrose, which is sugar, saline, salt water, and usually some anesthetic, which I like Procaine. I love Procaine, one of my most favorite chemicals in the world. It is an electron donor, so it will electrify a system. And so it literally will give you, some of the juice that you need to heal. And then you could do that with different solutions. There's all kinds of different formulas depending on who you talk to. You can do it with ozone now. But I was doing that too, injecting joints. I was injecting knees and shoulders, necks. I would just inject anybody who gave me a chance. So I was just getting as many reps in as I can. And at this time I was celibate. I had chosen to go celibate at some point. Was celibate for about 9 years. And I just was focused. I was, every weekend I was at a conference, or I was, at spare time, I was trying to go to any doctor's office that I could, just to be a fly on the wall or whatever. Ended up getting like almost triple the amount of preceptor hours that I needed to graduate medical school. But I was just a nerd, and I was hungry. I couldn't get enough of it. So I started injecting a lot of joints. I actually did a mission trip in India up to Hardwar, and we went to an ashram for a couple of weeks there, and there was, I think, 130, 150 people there, and there's a lot of joints, a lot of stuff. And so I just started getting as many people as would let me inject. I injected one guy, and he was so happy. He was going up and down stairs, his knees. He had arthritis for years, and it was just, the stairs were so tough. Literally after one treatment, he was able to go up and down stairs, told all of his friends, and then I had a line out the door, So I was just injecting knee after shoulder and elbows, all these things, and just getting those reps in. And so, and it was helping people. This is a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Let me ask you something. So this is something that Ronalda and I talked about before, and she's going through this similar thing to what you're talking about now in her journey as far as her knees. She was a runner. She wants to run more, but there's this whole thing that she getting older, it's broken down. But my point is, like my sister and some of my friends have had their knees replaced or their hip replaced. And this is kind of what you're talking about. She wants to not do that. So she's already done I think it's the right knee. But her doctor, who's not practicing in this, what you're talking about now, in these ways of allowing the body to heal itself, and he wants to do a knee replacement. Earlier on, you said there's so many surgeries, like 60% of the ones that we have done that aren't necessary, really.
Correct.
I mean,
there's probably higher than that. That might be pretty generous to say.
So yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. So replacing the knees, to me, that seems like that falls into that 60 or more percent that really isn't necessary. I get why people are doing it. But when you talked about the guy running up the stairs, that's the first thing you think about when you hear these people talking about, well, I've got to get my knee replaced or my hip replaced or whatever. Yeah. Is this realistic in eliminating that whole thing? Because talk about a major freaking surgery, right?
I mean, probably you could eliminate about 90% of surgeries, probably more. I mean, that's probably the real number. And I've seen it. I've helped hundreds of people avoid surgeries. Thankfully, I'm very blessed and very grateful of that. And yeah, I mean, literally, it can be done. Absolutely, 100%. I've seen it over and over and over again. I had a lady who was 76. She had surgery scheduled on her knee, complete knee replacement on the left. She came in for one round of treatment. So I did some peptides, some prolotherapy, some laser acupuncture. So I use a lot of lasers, So we have to set the environment up. So I have these protocols, and it's not always just throwing stem cells in there. If you set up the environment right, you set up the body correctly, because you have to heal the whole person. The person is not their knee. There's a reason it's isolated there. Maybe there's injury, maybe there's an infection, maybe there's an emotional component to it, right? There's always an emotional component. It's just how big is that slice of the pie? Is it really big? Like in cancer, it's almost humongous. Is it toxicological? Is it structural? Sometimes you just have to understand the structurality, and then you can inject, or you can signal, you can do the right things, and I can get into the philosophy, but you have to understand basically three things. You have to understand the substrate. What is the environment? What does it look like? Do you have the ability to heal? Do you have electricity? Do you have, is it toxic? Is it infected? Is it swollen? Do you have a pathway in? Is there blood flow in and blood flow out? Is there stagnation? Is there cysts? That's the environment, right? And then the bigger environment is the human. Does the human have the substance, to really understand what's going on and to heal that joint? Are they sleeping, right? Are they exposed to so much EMF that they can't get to deep sleep, and their endocrine system goes, and it doesn't restore them? Are they running in a deficit, right? So we try to bring people up holistically no matter what. So we do systemic treatments with local focus. And so, yeah, I mean, that lady, she came in, we did one round of, preparation, a day off. And then the second day she came in, we did the VSELs, which stands for very small embryonic like stem cells, which I'd love to get into. I mean, that's my jam for sure. I could talk about that all day. And she,
I have a feeling, by the way, just so you know, you don't have to dig too deep, because I've been scanning. There's going to be there's some other questions as well, but we're going to be coming back to this subject periodically through we're already at an hour. It doesn't even feel like 5 minutes, but I'm glad I asked you if there's not a hard stop, because I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this for a little bit. And you said you're okay on time right now.
Yeah, I'm fine on time. Yeah, today was my admin day to catch up anyway, so I'm here for this for sure. Yeah, so 2 days later, that lady was able to stand up like great. I mean, so when you get injections, you can have a little downtime. Usually it's like 1 to 3 days. You'll feel injected. There might be stiffness, a little bit of throbbing as some of the tissue is changing. The cells are integrating, remodeling. And so we set up the substrate, and then, do you have the substance? Do you have the building blocks? Can you make collagen, right? Do you have fats and proteins? Can you actually build the substance? And then do you have the signal? It's substrate, substance, and signal. So the signal is the electric charge, it's the millivoltage potential. It's the hormones. Hormones are signaling molecules. Peptides are signaling molecules. You have to have all of this working. And then we use lasers, we use light therapy. We use sound, we use frequencies
Light
as well.
therapy.
So we can pulse laser, we use radio frequencies, we use different things that'll be very specific to a tissue type or a cell type to enhance the signal. So we affect the substrate, the substance, and the signal. And then the VSELs are the seeds, and the VSELs are intelligent. They actually will affect all three of those by themselves. We just stack the deck. You know, my goal is to just stack the deck, give the largest healing signal, healing response in one go. And that goes on for many, many months. We've had people, you know, for 6 to 12 months continue this healing, you know, and then I've had people with Parkinson's or Lewy body dementia at like 11 months wake up. All of a sudden they can move. They're talking again. Their shakes their tremors are almost reduced to, you know, very little to none. And it's all of those things. And you have to incorporate the consciousness, because if you can get, you really should participate in your own health. And people are so checked out sometimes, or they identify with their illness. So like, oh, I am this, or I don't methylate, or you know, and it's like some doctor said this, right? And when it comes to joints, I mean, doctors throw around bone on bone. I will say most of the time it's not true bone on bone. They say that like
that's what she's going through right now. That one doctor for the other leg, she's going through that. That's the exact thing that she's being told. And I've been told in the past, meniscus, you know, bone on bone.
And it may or may not be the case, but most of the time it's not. Most of the time it's not true bone on bone. If it's true bone on bone, you would hear it clicking, it would shear. Yeah. You know, so as long as there's some tissue residual in there, we can build off of it. So we can put stem cells in there, we can fix the substrate, the substance, and the signal. We can do that. You will start to heal. I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times. I've done probably about 1,100 cases, a little over 1,000 cases of VSELs, just VSELs, not including the other work that I've done. So I've been pretty busy, and I've seen a lot, you know, and I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So I just try to polish and get the technique, the protocols, the program better, stack the deck in your favors. One of the reasons I made the Warrior blend, the peptide blend, 7 peptides in one, is because it's so much easier to do that than trying to get all of this, you know, 5 different vials and try to do this. And the thinking is kind of done for you. And that gives you the substance and the signal. So and the substrate to a degree, because it's a bunch of amino acids that can be rebuilding. It's the substance of the hormones to improve the hormone status, which is the signal as well. You know, and so this is the way I think, right? So if you understand that philosophy, you can get some serious deep healing. I see it a lot, very, very often. And it's not always a one and done. So that's another people, they put a lot of faith in the stem cells, like it's just going to solve all of their problems. I think of it as economically, as possible. So if you understand your regenerative debt, how much regenerative debt do you have? Do you have a knee? Do you have a shoulder? Do you have a hot pancreas? Do you have a liver? Do you have things that you can't feel, or your heart, your brain, right? How much regenerative debt do we have going in? So if you're owing $1.5 million, of regenerative debt, and you're just trying to resource from where you can, well, you're probably going to be tired all the time, for one, but VSELs are like $1 million in your regenerative bank account. So when you do that, you have a lot of bills you need to pay off, and vital tissue will get priority. Your heart, your lungs, your brain will get priority, because survival is the highest instinct. You must survive this moment to the next, so you can heal it all, or you can run from the bear. And most people are always running from that bear, or the tax man, or their wife, or their ex, or their husband. So if you have inflammatory people or inflammatory situations, that's very sympathetic, right? And we can get into like vagus nerve and sympathetic versus parasympathetic. You can't heal, regenerate a knee when you're running from the tax man. If you watch the news, it's all fear. It's all fear porn, right? It's just constant, it's lack and fear, right? We have such an abundant reality. Our world is so abundant. Once we get and reframe that and be into that abundance and accept it and have some faith in our own ability to heal. Like, you're healing every day. People don't realize how powerful they really are, because they're giving their power away to some outside source, or they think they need it from an outside source to get it in the first place, and you can go back into childhood, and we'll do some regressive work with some people. There's an emotional component to everything. Sometimes you can't heal without it, without addressing it. And sometimes it's small enough that these things are, they can kind of fade away if you fix the structure, or if someone's obviously immunologically challenged and you can fix that, for example.
This conversation, you are the best example of holistic that I have ever come across. Just your whole approach is fascinating. What you're doing is fascinating. Let me ask you, I want to pull Ronaldo off the screen here. Do you think any of this is ever going to fall into, the insurance companies? Is that I mean, because actually it's anti what health pretends to be. So, I mean, where do you think that's going to fall into down the road? Do you see any, let's see, let me reframe that question. Do you see, we talked about big ag and big pharma, and that's dominating, our lives is one aspect. And you went into a whole group of things that need to be healed as we're going through, and the stresses, the tax man, the wife that you're running away from, and there's all of that. So that's why I started this off with talk about holistic healing, because you do need all of that to be balanced. And it's fascinating and exciting to me because it's right along our journey. Do you see this being fought against and trying to be kept down? Or you're on an inside track? Can you answer Ronaldo's question there?
Yeah, well,
and by the way, she said insurance. She put insurance. She had a typo there, but
yeah, I got you. So the fast answer is not anytime soon. So the mainstream insurance companies are not going to cover it. It is, to your point, it is sort of counter. That is alternative. The main, they want the alternative things, and they want to tell you that what you're doing is alternative, right? So it's all weird. It's all backwards, right? Literally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so instead of getting these things that are more restorative and curative, well, guess what? That's less and less membership. The stupid part is that it's just it's a matter of reframing it. It's if you say, hey, look, we slide in regenerative medicine. Well, they can make money off of that. I mean, there's so many things and peptides and all this stuff. They just literally would have to reframe it and want to actually cure you. The desire to actually cure and fix you is not really there because it is a membership model. I'm trying to lose my patients as soon as possible. I'm just like I don't have time to see 20 visits with people. Like I do as much as I can in one and try to empower you. Let me know if you need a booster, or let me know if you need another touch up, or like if something else, we can go down your shopping list. And again, we can't fix everything in one day in one dose. So you may have a knee and a shoulder. We can probably do 2 or 3 sort of targets in one day in one treatment. And then you have to give it some time to heal, and then we can, there's a cadence, there's a timing, and every case is different. So I don't want to just overly generalize. But if you do some of the other work, you start to heal much faster, more robustly, and more to your original code. And that's what VSELs are. Something so beautiful about VSELs is that they're basically dormant. They're ametabolic. They're in a suspended sleep animation. They're basically sleeping. And so we wake them up, and when we age them, they're within the first few days to a few years, maybe a decade or so of life in the oldest people. So their telomeres are very strong, they're long, and they are young. They're not affected by things like mRNA as to the same rate, because mRNA is not interested in a sleeping cell, right? So these things are like a timestamp in a computer that we locked at one point, and I think that's the absolute intelligence of the body that they're there. I think it's God's that put them there, but we can talk about that. But there's a reason that they're there for sure, and they are the things that when you have spontaneous healing, they have to be there. We know in the literature they colonize around tumors. They're actually probably protecting us from tumors and stuff from getting out of hand. But it's not just it's not just the stem cells. In the way to get VSELs, we get them from the blood. You can get them from the bone marrow. You can get them from the fat. But we get them from the blood. We separate out the blood and the plasma. It's highly concentrated, or they're the most concentrated, I should say, in the plasma. And that plasma, not only does it have the V-cells, it has exosomes, it has hematopoietic stem cells, it'll have remnants of all your platelets and all of these growth factors. So it can have 50 to 150 different types of growth factors in there. So that plasma, which is liquid gold, it is your gold. It is the most regenerative material that we make and we have in our body. So we can isolate it. And we have elegant methods of preparing it, and then we just have creative methods of giving it back to you. So I can inject locally, and then we do an IV systemically, and then we use lasers. So the laser will tune the plasma, tunes the cells to a pitch, a frequency, a pulse, and then we use that like a tractor beam to target specific tissue. And so we're just enhancing the stem cell concentration in any given tissue. We can use frequencies for the brain, we can use frequencies for the liver, we can use, very specific frequencies, and then into
the plasma was what you're saying. You use lasers as a pre-treatment before you, depending on what you're working on, you're tuning that plasma into more focused on the liver, more focused on the different things with those frequencies.
Correct.
Is that what you're just saying right now?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it becomes more and more
Wow.
precise, so it's not just like throwing stem cells in your body, because there are places you can go and you can get stem cells off the shelf and they'll just put it in an IV and that's your treatment, right? Or they might inject it into a knee and that's your treatment, right? So they're very intelligent. Stem cells want to heal you and they love you. There's this deep compassion because they want to restore you and they want to make sure that you can survive and then thrive, but you have to survive. So if you're running in a regenerative debt, right, you have to kind of pay those bills off. Right. So that's why some people, don't always get that first response. But when you can sort of line up and you're doing 2, 3, treatments down the road, we can build, we can integrate. And then, like I said, my goal is to try to get my patients to not really need me anymore, as quickly as possible. And I, with as much love and, with to be power, to be stronger, to look younger, to feel younger, but also just be overall more healthy. I'm healthier now than I've ever been. And yes, I do VSELs. Of course I do. Yes, I do peptides. Of course I do. I walk the walk. But, I don't have all the time in the world. I can't do an hour and a half of self-care every day. I work out maybe once or twice a week, which I'm going to do more. I need to do more. But when your body is more efficient, it's like cheating, right? You ever seen those people that they lift one weight and they've got muscles, or they can just run. They never trained a day in their life and they're faster and stronger than everybody around them, right? Because their bodies are just more highly tuned. They're more efficient. And that's what we're finding, when you do what's called photobiomodulated plasma therapy. So it's life that's changed with light, photobiomodulated. And so we use lasers to as part of the process, and then we tune it with that laser. And then once we give it back to you, then we enhance the signal. So like a tractor beam, they'll focus where we want to, and we increase what I call the quantum probability, or the likelihood of an amount being highly concentrated in a given area.
So you're actually saying that, I shouldn't say that way. Realistically, through therapies, even if you don't have necessarily a knee that it's either going to be replaced or you're going to do, what you're talking about, what's the word I'm looking for? These processes, these, God damn it, there's a word I'm looking for. Sorry. But
protocols
can actually, protocols. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that'll work. That wasn't the word I was thinking of, but it's a better word than I was thinking of. So I'm stealing your word. These protocols actually can have the ability to, wherever state you're in, and I'm way oversimplifying this, I know, but you actually can become better. Like you said, people who just look at a weight and their muscles.
Yeah, you've seen these people.
You can become a more physical being, right?
100%. You can be just more efficient, and I just say the more you become more yourself. You become more into your power, and where we can, we shed the consciousness blockages, where we sort of identify with the diagnosis. So I don't treat people. I don't treat diagnoses. I treat people. I don't worry about. Yes, I try to understand it as functionally as possible. I try to assess, we do labs, we do imaging, we do as much as we can to understand but we don't sit there and label it this, it's like, oh, this is that. It's like, no, you are you, and this is what's happening, and then that allows us to unwind it much more efficiently without, that sort of energetic blockage around it, and it's funny because we'll work with some animals and stuff like dogs and horses, and they don't have the blockages mentally. They heal super well, extremely well, right? So how much is that?
Because you don't have all that other bullshit to deal with, right?
Yeah, and so it's funny because insurance, to Ronaldo's point or question, insurance is covering more and more of this for animals, but not humans, and that's stupid, right? But they are, because it prevents surgeries, so they heal faster, they live longer, which they will get more care. And then, they pay the insurance longer because it actually lives longer, right? So plasma, if I have anything to say about it, I would say the plasma will probably be something, or this photobiomodulated plasma with activation of VSELs, and we'll probably find a better way to say that. It might just be V-cell therapy. You'll go in probably once or twice a year regularly. It's most likely what's going to allow us to live to 150, at least at this time and beyond, because it is literally the fountain of youth. It is inside of you, and it's yours. So that we're not, you can put it pretty much anywhere. I've injected it all over the body, and it's completely extremely safe. It is your own tissue. You don't reject it, and it's so beautiful. We paint with a broad brush. I see kids as young as 2 years old with vaccine injuries and all kinds of weird, vaccine stuff, even with cerebral palsy and autism. And I'm not saying that was causative. I'm just, and then all the way through to in the 90s.
You just brought up autism, and that's a big, obviously, a lot of talk about that now, and how that's going up. I wonder, and I'm not asking you to even answer this, because there's obviously more risk to you because you're an expert, and I'm just in my head thinking, my God, I mean, there's something going on, because autism is on the scale, let's call it, is I mean, it used to be 1 in 10,000 or something or whatever. Then it got down to 1 in a couple hundred. And then now it's like 1 in 35 people or something, like some crazy number. This has got to be something that, by the way, we have almost 600 people on, 575-ish.
Awesome.
It's bouncing in it. Yeah. So obviously a topic that people are very interested in, and but it's interesting, and I'm not expecting that you would even respond to this, because it's whatever, but it would be, you talked about going in once or twice a year and getting people to 150, and I believe I mean, you go back into the Bible, and our lifespan isn't necessarily, there's no real reason for us to not be able to live longer than we do. We talked about big ag and big pharma, and that's probably part of the reason. But I mean, we just basically, they keep us walking by pills and bullshit that's really killing us. But it'd be interesting to see, does that have the ability to get back, in some of the sicknesses that we have, for instance, autism, and there's a bunch more that not only living to 150, but also a lot of stuff that's going on could be eliminated because your body could heal itself. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It can heal itself. It has, and it does in every moment. It's working constantly to heal itself, right? But if we can sort of remove the thorns, that's kind of the first thing. Autism, and it's not just Tylenol, by the way. Like, I know they want you to believe it's just Tylenol. That's the new thing. It's not vaccines, it's the Tylenol. Look, it's not one thing. It's not one thing. It's not just vaccines. It's not just Tylenol. Like, do these things have a linear correlation? Yes. But it's understanding the what and how, right? It's, well, how is this happening? Well, it's an insult to the immune system. It lowers that before baby has even established an immune system. So the timing is irresponsible. Let's just call it that. And so if you waited till you have more immunoglobulins and antibodies in your in mother's milk, right? So they go C-section first of all, right? How many more babies are getting C-sectioned? And then they don't get the vaginal flora. So the vaginal flora is very special. When a woman's having birth, for the 3 to 7 days right before and right after, it's a very different flora than any time in her life cycle. And that helps seed baby, right? So the baby should be, in a good, like midwives and doulas will know this. If for some reason you have to go C-section, well, you get the vaginal secretion and you wipe it all over baby, because they're supposed to, because it seeds their immune system. And then the rest of their immune system is established for the first, 6 to 18 months through the breast milk, right? For the first week or so, you got that colostrum, and then you get the immunoglobulins, which are also known as antibodies. But it is sort of the, the initial or the innate immune system before you adapt. And so you're pushing what's called, you have two kind of lengths of the immune system, adaptive and innate, what you get from mother, what you get what you're born with, what mama's exposed to, and then through the breast milk. But there's this huge insult when you don't have a developed spleen or thymus, for one, where that's where your immune system starts to understand the outside world, and that's how we adapt, or that's how we develop our adaptive immune state. But you're doing it before you've even really built any immune system. And it's certain insults in the vaccines will cause blood-brain barrier disruption, and now you're getting deposits of heavy metals, which are at very toxic loads for an adult, let alone a baby. And then you're getting 72 shots, by the time they're like 18 or 12 even. So the schedule is just insane. I mean, it's absolutely insane. First day, you're getting hepatitis B and vitamin K shots. You would already know mom's status of hepatitis B. There's no reason to do that. It's irresponsible, and it's downright evil, in my opinion. It doesn't make sense.
It is.
And so we'll see what comes out of this, the Maha movement and all this kind of stuff. But you have to put faith in yourself, right? You have to arm yourself. You can't just let someone else tell you what it is, Even me. I mean, please take it with a filter. I'll answer any questions that I can. I don't know everything by any means, but we just try to empower people, and it's built within inside of you. That plasma, we get it from you. It is your original source code that is the youngest, babyest version of you with your original data, with that love and compassion. So it's beautiful. and I see it, from a very conscious, as a very high conscious thing, because you're kind of, you're bringing in your wisdom of your body, the wisdom of every day and every moment that you've led up to this moment, with the power and potential of your baby stem cells, as you would have had essentially, being birthed or within the first few years of life. And again, everyone's, aging at different rates. And so these cells are a little bit, more aged than some people, but they're still the youngest versions that we're aware of in the literature that has this potential to be the different tissue types. They have not chosen a tissue type, so they are what's called multipotent, meaning many, but they have the potential to be many or all that we are aware of different tissue types. But they certainly have the intelligence to signal other stem cells that you have around you, because you're going to have sentinel, stem cells in any tissue. You're going to have a handful, not a lot of them, but stem cells floating around waiting to be activated. Right, that are there's some are V cells that are not activated, and some are living and they're aging, but they're not really signaled to respond yet. And when there's tissue trauma, when there's inflammation, if you have inflammatory people, they might get activated. So once when I do an injection, they're going to get some activation. So even prolotherapy that doesn't have stem cells can cause a stem cell response. And that leads to PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma. But that's good. That's great. You got the platelets, you got the growth factors, but they just isolate out, about a third or, about a third to 2/3 of the plasma. And then they inject that into people. And that is very different. It's wild, wild west as far as I'm concerned, because every doctor or every method is going to be different. There's different stressors that will activate it. And so not all PRP is created the same.
So her question here, and how long does it really take to see results from PRP treatment? There really needs to be other treatments around that. Like you said, it's the wild, wild west. I mean, how do you address her question here, Antonio?
Yeah, so I mean, the PRP is very different. It depends on the PRP, and it depends on the case. Depends on what is your regenerative debt? What is the economics of a knee? Like how bad is it? Right? What do you have electricity? Is the structure really, really off? Does it, how long is that gap of that ligament? If that ligament has to grow, well, there is a time frame that it takes. It takes about 3 weeks for collagen to form that triple helix, that beautiful tissue that's very, very strong. For you to visualize it on an ultrasound, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks, right? But it starts immediately. So some things are going to be very noticeable right away, and then some things will take 3 weeks up to 6 months. So it's very, very variable. It depends on all of this stuff. Depends on the person itself. Do you have the building blocks? Do you have hormones? Do you have growth hormone? Right? As we age, we have less and less growth hormone. We have less and less NAD. We have less and less peptides. So if you can bring that up, and I can put that in an IV, so we can bring it up in 90 minutes. Right, so we identify where the deficiencies are, load that system up as best as possible. NAD is a whole nother conversation. Stem cells love NAD, and most people, don't have enough of it because we age. Right. What's another major causative factor in aging is oxidative stress.
Wait. Hold on. I'm trying to think. NAD is
it's the bioavailable form of B3, vitamin B3.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
So it's so when we go out and take B3, which is kind of get you going, right?
You get the niacin flush. It can charge you. Yeah.
Niacin is another awesome. These are all things that are in your body, and using treatments that you're talking about now. We get the store bought stuff, right? And even testosterone, it's big on the shelves at certain grocery stores and vitamin stores and all that. And not really, they claim great results. I've actually tried it a long time ago in the past and didn't really feel anything different. But this is different than what we're seeing. All of the things you're talking about now are what they're trying to produce on the shelves with whatever results they're getting from those. This is different though. This is your own body stuff. And so when you're talking about building the stuff back up, you're seeing big results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I had a conversation with a guy yesterday. We did a treatment about a year ago. The guy had a stroke. He could not use his right leg or his right arm, and has very poor vocabulary. He was missing words and stuff. I spoke with him, and he's able to lift his leg up. He's flexing. He's getting all this stuff back.
Wow.
And this was happening. It's a little bit happened right away. right after the treatment, literally 15 minutes, he was able to lift his leg about a foot off the bed, which he couldn't move for 4 months because of the stroke. And he started to flex his arm. Now he's got more, it's about 40%, but it's still, from zero, not being able to use it. And this is, I want to say it's about 11 months later or something like that. So yeah, he's continued to regenerate. Now they're like, look, we need to do another treatment because it works so long. But if you don't do anything, like that signal continues to go. And so we can put this big, robust stem cell treatment in somebody. And, as long as they're paying off the debt, some things are going to make sense. Some things are going to be very, very clear right away. And some things it's like, 4 months, there's this wave that happens and you just feel stronger. You feel like the life is easier. You're not maybe as apprehensive about your movements or less sensitive to certain foods or EMF or some things that we don't even realize that we're sensitive to. Because so many of us are like that frog in the boiling water. We're just slowly, our light is slowly going down, less energy, slowly. And then you're like, I ask people all the time, when is the last time you felt well? And I mean, there'll be a blank, like, oh my God, I don't even know. They don't even remember feeling well, and it's usually always before COVID, right? But, for a lot of people, a lot got funky around that time in 2020.
Man, COVID was COVID was a bizarre period in our life. I mean, just the politics behind it, the whole theory of why that came about, all of this, all of that. It's just bizarre. It seems to me it was another way for us to be injected by, my God, I need some
mRNA. It was all about the mRNA.
Yeah.
More than any. I mean, look, it was about 40 different things. They tested and tried everything. They even tested, gate analysis. So there's like in Japan, they were doing little like test runs on all this technology all around the world, and they were pretty isolated. So one country didn't really know what the other countries were doing. The stuff they were doing in Australia was absolutely inhumane, where people would have to, in 15 minutes, they would get a text and they had to ping back or they would get arrested, if they didn't ping back within their radius. So they're creating digital prisons. They were, trialing that out. I think it was Japan where they were doing the gate analysis. So they're looking from a satellite or CCTV and just look, because everyone has a signature gait. The way that you walk, right, is you can tell your friends when you see your friends walking, oh yeah, that's Peter. Right.
True. Yeah, that's funny. You don't think about that. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a signature walk. And the other thing they tested was this right here. There's a signature here. So they have, a face recognition that all they needed was the space above a mask. Go figure. Right. I mean, and look, the things you can go down the rabbit hole with some of that stuff. But one of the big things they wanted to do was mRNA. And mRNA, if it goes into your nucleus, right, it goes into your DNA, it rips it open, it inserts itself now to make a protein that you are supposed to attack. Do you know what that's called? Autoimmunity, right? You are making a protein that you attack. You attack. That's autoimmunity by definition. So anyone who signed up, if they got the right shot, and everyone got different stuff. I can tell you that people should have been reacting pretty consistently with a flu, with some irritated shot or something. And there's wildly diverse, and remember the whole thing about the negative 80 degrees? You were supposed to, they just threw that out the window because, so apparently they figured it out how to make safe. Anyway, look, that's a whole rabbit hole, stuff. What I can tell you is that they want to, there's mRNA. They talk about this. There's companies that never made a human product now making mRNA and putting it in as many people as they can, steamroll past the testing, no double-blind randomized controls. They don't even do the real science, so it's absurd from a scientific perspective. It's not science, right? It's fear.
And there was a lot of negative stuff that came out. Like you said, different people had different results, and from something like a vaccine, people should be within a very small range.
If it's the same product, there should have been a range. Yeah, exactly, right. And we knew that they're hot lots. You went to VAERS, to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, which is the official reporting system for VAERS. There were lots that were hot. There were lots that were like the highly concentrated deaths and sequelae, right, from the
swollen hearts, swollen brains, all sorts of crazy
stuff. They knew about the myocarditis. They knew that they shouldn't give it to pregnant. If you read the original paper, which I don't know why doctors don't read this stuff, it said you need to test more. We don't know how pregnant women are going to do, and we probably shouldn't because there is such a thing as shedding. It says it in the original document. And they just want to like glaze over it. It's sad because a lot of the doctors don't read, and I lost a lot of respect for people who are forcing experiments onto people without true informed consent. Because I'm all about informed consent.
if you go back to it and you talk about it, you're disappointed that the doctors didn't read. Well, I mean, it got to a point where it was criminal not to do this, and you were banned. Let's call it shadow banned.
Or canceled.
If you're a doctor that, or
Yeah.
canceled, all those words that came out about the same time. And people were like being shamed. And so now doctors, if they were speaking up against it, they were being, X'd or, banned and all. The government really, in my opinion, the governments around the world, that's why I'm going to tack the word conspiracy around, because, I don't know the whole facts, but if anybody looks at any of this stuff logically, you're taking a risk, and without doing the tests, that's a huge risk. We're almost at 700 people on, and we're an hour and a half into this. This is flying by like crazy. This is fascinating stuff. Cody here has a question. We've been talking about the VSELs, which is one of the most exciting things. That's so you have a couple of different things that are going on, and some of them are waking up cells, regenerative cells that are sleeping in your body. I'm just going back to some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier. But is this already used in hot? And we've touched on some of this because these were questions that that were coming in when we were talking earlier. So just to kind of step up, touch on quickly some of these, I want to ask you about Cody's VSEL. They're in hospitals, but I mean, is it really used, to the point that it should be? No, I know that answer is no, it's not. But
definitely not used the way that it should be. I think people highly underestimate it. There were people still debating whether they exist or not, and meanwhile, there are separate groups in India or Japan and Russia, counting them, finding them. So it's not whether they exist or not. It's like, what does it mean and how do we use them? Because it is not like PRP. I've done a lot of PRP, and when you do the VSELs, when you have something that more activates the VSELs and not just the plasma for PRP, you have a deeper response, and you do get this sort of cascade of events. And there's a timeline when you're doing stem cell work. I have the 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, and then usually somewhere between 6 to 9 months, and then somewhere around 10 to 12 months. There's these different sort of waves of events that happen chronologically. So. PRP doesn't necessarily have that same thing, but PRP is being used in hospitals. So PRP is being used in surgical clinics. They know that people will heal faster, so they might do a knee replacement. And if they're doing the good work, they will put some PRP in there because it will heal faster. They know that. That's well ascribed. It's in the literature. And if they really
isn't that when you give blood, don't they break it down to, when I go in and I give blood, I donate blood or whatever, blood bank. Don't they break it down to the plasma level? In that
right.
Going to the PRP, right?
Right. So so just let me clarify. So when you get a blood draw, you can spin it down and you'll separate it by weight and density. So you'll have a plasma portion, which is gold. You'll have the blood version, and you'll have like white blood cells in the middle. And the platelet rich is the stuff that you want to get the concentration of the platelets, and it's kind of in that lower part of it. That's PRP. I use the full plasma. So I use the platelet rich and the platelet poor. So I don't discern. I take the full plasma portion because I want as many VSELs as I can get out of there. And we actually have protocols to increase the stem cell harvest as well. That's more the proprietary side of things. But and then, so the VSELs are being studied in little small pockets. I know that the FDA was looking at progeria. So progeria is basically the aging disease. This is where kids will age 10 to 14 days in one day, and they look like they're 80 at the age of 3 or 4. So that's something they just started to look at. And I don't know, there probably is a few studies. I haven't kind of surveyed in a few months probably, but more and more people are finding out about it. I think probably people have known about the power of plasma for a very, very, very long time. There was a company, I believe it was in San Francisco, they off of this study where they put a young mouse's blood or young mouse's plasma into an old mouse, and the old mouse got healthier and started getting younger and revitalized and all this stuff. And so they use that sort of data to create a plasma bank. And so the wealthy were going in and getting plasma, and you can get plasma from other people, and if you match it correctly, especially, and that's just the plasma. If it's activated correctly, it has a much deeper and more profound effect. And there's all kind, there's a few different major methods of activating the VSELs. I've worked with Dr. Tadovakaitis, who had one method using what's called a song laser. I've worked with Ian Mitchell, who's got another method, and I've kind of cherry picked some of the best. I've been doing this about pretty much the whole time, about 8 years. Because I learned about them in medical school, and I was like, well, these things exist. So VSEL stands for very small embryonic-like stem cell. So very small is important because they're so small, they're just basically about the size of a nucleus with a little bit of cytoplasm. They're anywhere from 1 to 3, maybe up to 4 microns or so. And you're theoretically able to cross the blood-brain barrier because they're so small. No other stem cells that you use off the shelf that are mostly what's called mesenchymal stem cells or MSC stem cells, they're too big. They can't cross the blood-brain barrier. They get trapped in the lungs. So if you try to get a lung to improve, they don't do as well. But you can get VSELs into a lung, and I've seen complete reversal of long haul COVID in 1 or 2 treatments, complete reversal. And I've seen it over and over and over again. Why? Because the VSELs are not interested in mRNA. Remember, they are not going to be charged with that autoimmune signaling of the mRNA. So if there's a way to outnumber the ones that are mRNA signaled, well, they will re-educate the immune system, and you get a tremendous shift, and people will get their power back. I've seen it. I had a guy who was at 93% oxygen, didn't realize that he's like triple boosted. He had COVID, and he still got COVID, right? All these people still get COVID, by the way, right?
Right.
And it's probably worse because their immune system is tanked after 6 months. But anyway, he got COVID really bad, kind of waved it off. And I was like, look, hey, we should probably do this treatment that will get the VSELs right in there. I was like, well, I don't know. I was like, okay, well, and a friend came by and was like, look, you were really bad off. You really should really do this. But anyway, his if you check a pulse ox, so it checks your oxygen saturation, it should be 99 or 100. Right. Most people, if they've got a lot of COVID stuff, will go down. Like, it's pretty reliable. They'll go down 97, 95. This guy was at 93. And I checked with different pulse oxes on every finger. So I verified it. Like, his oxygen saturation was 93. And he was more complaining about hair loss, And it's like, well, look, there's a reason for that. It's like, yes, I understand. Like, hey, I lost my hair early on, right after that car accident. I lost, and I had all the genetic predisposition for it and all that. I'm fine with all that. But my point is, he's coming in, at X amount of age. He's like, look, well, let's figure that out. Well, his oxygen was 93. If you can't get oxygen to your scalp, that's one of the first things that's going to go. That's not a vital thing. Your hair is not a vital tissue. Your brain is, but it's also meaning you're getting 93% oxygen to your brain, which you should be getting 100. Yeah. We did one treatment. We lasered his lungs and got the VSELs in there, went to 99, 100 in one treatment. Wow. And so he was running at a 7% deficit, which is tremendous when you're talking about that last 7% of oxygen. You can't think, you can't focus, you can't heal. You're not healing. You're running literally at a deficit at 93%. Who wants to run at 93%?
100%. Wow.
So in one treatment. So he may need follow up. He may get really good, and then sometimes things can come back a little bit. But. So it's not always, I'm not selling the cure or anything like that. My point is that there's a mathematics, there's an economics to it. If we understand it more deeply from a higher consciousness level, if we understand the substrate, we understand the substance, we give it a good signal, the body wants to heal. It loves you. These cells love you. They want to heal. They want to correct you and give you your power back. And they want to get you to, the highest level of homeostasis and efficiency possible.
The body loves you because it's you. There's no better. Just to put it in a broad brush, there's no better friend or person that wants you to be at your best than you. You're talking about things that are absolutely undeniable and things that we just don't have as much access to or knowledge about even than we should. Let me ask you something. Because you're not around the corner from me, so how do people come and see you and visit you? And I'm not closing this down at all because we haven't even gotten halfway through the questions yet. And before you get into that, Bradley Pomp is somebody that shows up every once in a while, and so I have to give him. I promised him the first time I'd give you a shout out, Bradley. I appreciate you coming in. But not this question, because I do want to get back to the EMF. You've already answered it, but let's pop back on there. It's not just for hospital people, although or people who work in hospitals. there's a whole product line, and we can just run through that quickly. But if I wanted to come and get some treatments done, is that just simply setting up an appointment and showing up in San Jose? But you also travel around. You were in New York, the New York area earlier, and you set up a thing for, what did you say, like 100 people, and you set up a time to do that. Do you do that on a regular basis?
Well, it was a smaller group. It was a couple dozen, but yeah. I mean, I get called.
Yeah.
I get called. You know, I'm on a mission. I go where I'm called, and we set up different groups. I work under private membership, so people do have to sign a private membership contract. We coordinate with any local clinics or doctors if we can, where we can, as much as possible. But yeah, I'm all private, so you have to become a member. I have not advertised or marketed. I mean, I'm just kind of doing more podcasts now because I just have so much information to give to share with people. How do people get involved in your private membership? Let me ask you that. I'm asking for personal reasons, but I guarantee you, there's people going, I don't live in San Jose. How do I get dialed into this? So I mean, I'm going to give you a little bit of push your. Here's a door. Pump your product here. So you work off of private memberships. Basically, you sign up for your services as well as the other people that do. And how does that work? What does that look like? Yeah, so I'm in San Marcos, which is San Diego. So it's North County, San Diego. So
why did I think
people can come to me. Yeah, people can come to me. I do concierge, so I do house calls. I go all up and down California, but I can go other places too. That's all part of the membership service. So that would be more of like a private conversation. But thankfully, I've never had to market or advertise. It's all been word of mouth. And now, I have a staff. I can take information. If you go to my website, optimumwellnessnatural.com, optimumwellnessnatural.com. I think you put it in with an M or something, but it's just Optimum Wellness. Okay, so there it is. I got to redo that. I must have picked up an M. All I did is copy and paste. But anyway, there's your website. Go ahead. Okay, so without the M, but so you can just give me an email. We do have like a text number and an email address, and we take cases as they come in. And if we're not the right fit, we'll find maybe we'll give a good referral or something like that. But we can paint with a pretty broad brush. There's almost something we can do for everybody. Like I said, we treat people, not the diagnoses. You do have to become a member to play with me in my sandbox, but I'm trying to empower you to not need me as soon as possible. And that's kind of in my working model. The big thing what we do is VSELs. So we try to make the VSELs to be the best treatment it can. So to be the most robust outcome, because it's going to be a full system upgrade. I mean, your whole body will get rejuvenated. You will look younger, feel younger. Typically, we can claim anti-aging. So that's kind of where we can more comfortably have claims, but we don't make promises, guarantees. However, I've seen some of the most amazing things. We're usually about 90+% successful, and sometimes you need more than one treatment. But if we can understand as much of it as possible, sometimes we'll work with somebody. We might do some cleanses. We might do some detoxing, for a couple of weeks or some months. We might set them up with some peptides to get the signal going, so that we can have the biggest response. Sometimes we'll front load the V-cells. We'll jump right in, do the V-cells, because it'll allow us to get a kind of a better hold on someone's health. And then the things that we do after that will work better. The lifestyle, the nutrition, the diet, those things seem to align better after the V-cells. So some of it depends on, the finances. Some of it depends on the case. But we take every case, we assess, and then we work with people to say whether we're a good fit or not. And it's, like I said, it's all membership based.
All right, let me ask you this. I knew Ronaldo would get to this question because I was setting this up a little bit earlier. She had a treatment done, and it doesn't sound like it was anywhere near kind of the protocols you go through. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. She and I have never actually met, but we've been digital friends for a long time. She's a creator, very good one actually. And so long story short, on one knee she's had success on it, and the other knee she's having problems getting any success out of it. Is that go back to the protocols possibly, or is there something maybe more? Or obviously this is somebody who's probably going to want to get involved with you because she's been hammering me about getting you on. What do you, how do you address what she's saying? What would be the reason that one worked in one and one not in the other? Potentially, you're not there, you haven't seen it, you don't know anything about her. It's an unfair question, but I'm asking it anyway.
Yeah, well, Ronaldo, thanks for all the questions. I love the curiosity. I'm a very curious person myself, so I get it. Yeah, so it's really that they're not all created equal, right? So you have to understand, the environment of each knee, because each knee could have a completely different injury pattern. If it's the meniscus, that can be slower to grow, so it could just be a timeline. Like type 2 cartilage takes
That's what her doctor told her.
Longer to grow. And the stem cell product can be different. I mean, if you're getting it off the shelf is one thing. We don't really know what's in there. I mean, they better be testing for cleanliness. They better be testing for viruses. If you don't have a certificate of analysis, don't touch it, first of all. Okay, let me just tell you that. Sure. I wouldn't use it. I try not to use any donor stem cell tissue because we really truly do not know the long-term effects. We know that if you get bone marrow transplant after bone marrow transplant, that you can have chimerism. If you look up bone marrow transplant and chimerism, there can be a mixing of genetics where someone can actually have 4 chromosomal parents, 10 years down the road.
Wow.
And that's if it doesn't cause cancer. We don't know. Like I'm saying, I don't want to, overstate that because I don't use a lot of that stuff. And there's a reason that I don't, because I haven't had to, for one. You can heal yourself.
Right.
So if we have more faith in that, with the signaling, you can do tremendously well. Now, if it's true bone on bone, those are the harder cases. They probably need more support. They may be surgical. However, if you do VSELs ahead of time, and if it's not there, you typically will heal faster, even if you need the surgery, because you're at a higher state of elevated healing. Right? A lot of that debt is paid off, and so you can heal the thing that you're more acutely targeting even better. And we do it even before and after surgery. If some people are just set, they listen to that doctor, they're set in their mind that they have to do the surgery, right? So that can be problematic thinking, because this is authority that may have false authority if they're just throwing around that term bone on bone, for example, to sell surgeries. So it really depends on the state of the knee, the total, deficit or the total injury component. And if you did it at 2 different times, well, you might have had a better, substance. You might have had better hormonal signal. You might have had better sleep during that first one and not the second one. There are a lot of other variables to consider. It's not just about throwing stem cells at the problem. And sometimes that will work. Sometimes you just put stem cells near it. Oh my God, everything helped, but it's not always that easy. And I will tell you, it's harder and harder to heal if you don't get rid of some of these layers, because we're in a thicker and thicker soup. There's more stuff, more toxicity. People are more sympathetic all the time, so they're not rested and digesting and sleeping and regenerating like they ought to.
Yeah, so, you're the way I look at it, just to kind of back and forth here a little bit. It seems like stem cells are better than, it's a better technology that we have access to than other things before it, obviously. But it sounds like it's almost vanilla compared to the other things that need to be done that actually are more critical to the body healing itself, right? I mean, that stem cell thing is a term that's out there and is like looked at as very advanced medicine, when actually it's probably down here somewhere, right? I mean, it's kind of
there's so many layers. There's so many layers. I think if you're just going to get stem cells off of a shelf and just throw it in your body with no real consideration, I think that's a little barbaric. It's almost like just doing surgeries without considering the other options, right? It's just reframing that. And that's not to say that it will or will not work. I'm not trying to, debate on that necessarily. Sure. Absolutely. I don't think that we fully understand the long-term safety and of effectiveness overall, because you hear of about a few cases. I can tell you about a lot of bad cases where people come to me from stem cell clinics, say, well, I got this stem cell, I did this, now it's worse, or I got nothing. I was charged $15,000. I spoke to, seven different doctors on a panel, and they do the exact same thing for every single person. They make this big show about it. I'm not picking on any particular clinic or anything, but I've had to do some cleanup work. I've had to do, and maybe that's just the way that it goes in the space. But they can sell you stuff, that sounds good, it looks good, because we have hope. We want to believe these things. We want to believe, oh, good, there's just a solution. We can just throw some stem cells in there, and it's going to fix everything. And it just doesn't. That's not always the case, right? It can, but again, if you don't fix your body, if you've got a million other fires to put out, well, you can put stem cells in a knee, and they're still going to want to put out some of the other fires, right? If you've got a liver or pancreas, if you got these other things, some of that is going to be taken from, even if you inject it locally. And if you do it IV or systemically, well, then it's kind of like shotgun. Like, hopefully it goes where they want to or where they need to, hopefully. But it's all based on signaling. So with an acute injury, you have a loud signal, right? If you roll an ankle, there's a loud signal there. The SOS signal is very high. But a chronic injury after 20 years later from an old basketball injury or, whatever, it's just very small little, it doesn't get much attention, right? It's a very small signal, right? And so that's why I typically will do it over multiple days, because I want to make sure I get a handle on the signal and the substance and the substrate. I want to understand, can we get this charge? Can we, and sometimes all we have is that one go, because that's all we can afford. So we do the best that we can. And I've got layers in my protocol that I will, individualize for that particular person to give them like I said, the best response is my goal. I want you to win. I want everyone to be younger, fitter, faster, stronger, optimal. I want you to win. I want you to get off the surgical table if possible. And it's not always possible. Maybe there's still a time and a place, but I think that we're whittling that down more and more. We're finding out more that we can do.
You're giving hope in to a lot of people in this, because you said it. We'll stay with the 70%, but more like 90% of the times you don't need surgery. Now, when I had my motorcycle accident, I've got a big, looks like a shark bite on the back. It goes from basically my armpit down to my hip, because they had to open me up, because all my ribs were like 7, 8, 10, 12 pieces. I got more steel in here. I'm the Bionic Man light.
There you go. Wow.
Are you old enough to even know what I'm talking about? Bionic Man, remember that show?
It was the $60 million man or something like that.
$60 million man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've got that going on. But so there are moments in time where obviously, but also I wrestled through college, and I was in the Olympic. Well, I was in the trials till I blew my knee out. But I had a disc taken out, and so that was probably one that I shouldn't have done, and didn't need to get done, because there's things that I could have done in stretching, blah blah blah. So I hear you, and I'm not surprised that number is as high as like 60-70%, maybe even 90% of surgeries really don't need to be done, and you can have the body heal yourself. So at the very least, you're giving a lot of people a lot of hope, because we in the great middle class, we don't have access to stuff like what you're saying here. And for instance, the film law, Leetta, she was on yesterday, actually, one of our shows yesterday. Thank you, Rod and Dr. Dr. Douglas, for hosting a powerful conversation. And Ronaldo, how long do you have to have PRP, or is there an ending to this shot? Now,
this is not PRP. What I'm talking about is not PRP.
Right.
Just to be very clear.
Right.
There's PRP, and then there's full plasma biomodulation, which is what I do, which is activating for VSELs. So we're targeting the stem cells that are in the plasma. This is like doing 5 PRPs in one. It's that's not it's different across the different things that we target, but it's like PRP on steroids. It is PRP way plus. It's not just PRP.
Well, PRP is kind of like when you buy the soap in the 50-gallon thing, and it's mainly 90% water, compared to this, which is more of a concentrate thing. You say on steroids, I'm just saying the same thing with a different pitcher and something.
Yes, yeah.
Am I right like that?
Yeah, it's so much better than just PRP. That's for sure. I can tell you that after over 1,000 cases, it is not just PRP, because I was doing PRP a while, and then once I started targeting VSELs with pulse lasers and different radio frequencies and cold shock.
That's another level even higher, more, right? That's even more where it's more concentrated, right? Because now your frequencies are towards, say, the frequency of the liver or the frequency.
Well, we give it a mission. Yeah, we give it a mission. Yeah, we tell it what to do.
Yeah.
We tell it what to do. And in fact, it's sort of ceremonial. I would say it's very ceremonial, because I give everyone a chance to connect with their cells. I'm like, here, these are your cells. Direct them. You are the master and commander of your ship. And it's this beautiful thing. I'm not people even crying, about it, because it's just this beautiful connected moment. And they don't realize
I want to join your club just not just but there's a whole thing that you're very unique. Obviously, you know that. But that's fascinating. Like you said, it's an emotional thing. It's like you're educating. You're not just going, sit down, pull up your skirt, or I shouldn't have said that. Pull up your shirt, you know,
get in the
whatever.
gown.
Go get in the gown, do your thing, which is part of the. Obviously, you got whatever, but you're actually informing the people about what their body is able to do. And
you have to participate. You have to participate in your own.
You said
healing.
it first thing off.
It's like, be here now. We just bring it to this moment. You have to participate in your own healing.
I love that, man. Hey, actually, a couple days ago, Ronaldo was telling me about this. What part of dark chocolate helps heal the cartilage in the body?
Dark chocolate stimulates stem
that?
cells. Look, dark chocolate, just the whole dark chocolate. The darker, the better. The less sugar, the better. If it's
fermented. She's into
that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if it's raw fermented, even better. So the kind of, I don't know which particular part. I mean, there's L-theanine. There's a little bit of there's like tyramine in it and stuff like that. But it is very strong antioxidants. Something in dark chocolate that activates stem cells. I don't know enough about that, unfortunately, but I know that dark chocolate will improve your skin.
Well, it's just kind of coming out. It's just kind of coming out. I mean, we've always known chocolate's good for you, you know, actually good for you. Wine's actually good for you, you know, whatever, to degrees. But now this whole dark chocolate thing's really starting to emerge as, hey, there's something here. And like you said, you don't know enough about it, but I mean, it's just something that's kind of coming out and, you know, things need to be made more. These talks, you know, this is what drives things forward, and we need to really be able to do that. Adventure show here. Can this technology, now we talked about a lot of them, and this is probably, I don't know when that came across, probably 11, 17, probably about 45 minutes ago. So I know we've covered some of these. Can this technology help with chronic pain, which you were just talking about? We were just talking about the chronic pain or only specific injuries. Now, when I'm assuming they're talking chronic pain, I'm like, go ahead. What?
Yeah, I mean, both. I mean, we target people. We not the specific pain, but if you have the things that you need, yes, we get people out of pain all the time. That is literally one of my main missions in life, and this is one of the most effective ways that I know how to do it. Absolutely.
And literally for the whole body, right? I mean, literally, you talked about it. Come in a couple of times a year or whatever the case is in a schedule and go through a treatment where you're healing the body and literally getting us to be able to get to 150 years old. I mean, literally being able to have the body wake itself up, wake up some of the cells the regenerative cells that have gone to sleep. You know, there's that whole thing. So you're covering in this membership, you're covering the ability for people to literally the fountain of youth. I mean, they've been looking for it since the Mayan days, right? Well,
it's been inside you the entire time.
There you go.
It's been inside you the entire time. Yeah, and look, even if you need surgery or if you got to a point where things are really, really bad, I still am very biased, obviously, but why wouldn't you start with your own tissue? Why wouldn't you start there first if you can? You know, why jump to this external thing? And why jump to something you may not be able to come back from? You know, and if you need that, this will typically, as far as I know, always help you heal faster. You know, it will help you heal more quickly, more robustly. And in theory, if you had enough faith about it, you may never even need the surgery to begin with. And if you have, you know, sort of work with the right people, and I'm working on training some doctors as well. I've trained about 30 some doctors already on some of these methods, but I like every day there's a new one. There's a new protocol. There's a new stack. There's something new. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very busy, you know, I'm very, very busy, but I'm busy-minded, you know, I'm very busy-minded because like I said, I'm on a mission. I'm here to help people. I'm trying to get people out of pain, trying to protect and arm people. You know, my peptide blend is called Warrior Blend. I want people to be like strong because there's a battle. There's a fight happening. They're against you. They're against your soul. They're against your spirit. They're against your health. You know, we're living in a toxic soup. We're buzzed constantly by EMF, you know, and the news is just so sympathetic, you know, and it's difficult. And, you know, if you don't have it from within, you're just going to be hit from everywhere. And so the stronger you can make yourself with your own DNA, with your own tissue, I think it's always going to be safer, but at least start there. It's not going to solve all of your problems, necessarily, but it does a lot. It can do things that you wouldn't even think about, like for people's golf game, right? One of the big things I get from guys is like, oh my God, I'm hitting better. I'm more on point. They're like more finely tuned than they were before. They're getting 5 strokes off their game, like all this little thing. Balance is better. You're more efficient. One thing I noticed when I first started doing VSELs is my dexterity, my reaction time, and I use so much faster. I'm so more highly tuned. It's things like that are really hard to articulate, right? Because everyone has kind of a different maybe deficit or something. It's like, like I'm my memory is better than it used to be in medical school. It's about as good as it was before this. Because as we get older, right? As all these things, and I don't like to say that because it's really this accumulation. As we accumulate more and we're not getting rid of it, right? We should be sweating like 3 or 4 times a week. We need to be getting rid of as much of that accumulation as possible. Put out as many fires. Stack the deck in your favor. If you want, come see me. Great. Well, we can work with that. There's a lot that we can do. And it's a lot that you're going to have to do. And that's the key. It's like, remember, you're the one on this journey. I'm just trying to facilitate it. I can bounce some ideas around. I can set up the signal. I can create this huge, robust response, but you still have to participate.
Let me ask you this. Let me turn Adam's question around a little bit on him here. He says, how does stress and emotion affect the body's ability to regenerate cells? And we know what that is. It's a negative effect, obviously. We touched on it earlier, but I'm going to turn this over a little bit. I'm going to flip it upside down a little bit, like your car. Can these systems, these processes, these protocols, will they have an effect? There's stress. There's, you just broke up in a relationship, whatever. There's things that happen in life, but 70% of people today live with some sort of emotional, or I should say mental disease, whether it's stress, whether it's, suicide, all sorts of, from just being stressed out and worried about things all the way through to, really bad, tempted, everything. 70% of people live with that. And we're talking about children and adults, not just adults, right? So let me flip this around. Some of these protocols, or maybe a combination of these protocols that you work within your clients, within your clients, can they have a positive effect on if you're living with, if you're a stressful person? Yes, you'll sleep better. So I know the answer's got to be already yes, but is there an effect on that? Let me flip it around for Adam's question here.
Yeah.
Does it help with emotions, stress, level you out, that kind of stuff? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so it's a two-way street. We are what we eat, we are what we create, we are what we think. We think, therefore we are. And then to create sound and what comes out of our body, what goes in our body.
Philosopher too? You're a philosopher too?
There's no way around it, man.
I love that, dude. Go ahead.
So absolutely. So really negative thoughts, negative stress, we can call that low vibration. And it basically is. You feel just like, whoa, it's just, that certainly will make it harder to heal. And sometimes you need to you need a big response to get out of that, right? There's just one thing that I do. One of my skill sets is injecting, and one of the injections that I do, it's like a family of them, but I call it the stellate reset. So you have a nucleus that's right here on your neck, and nucleus is a kind of a bundle of nerves where nerves go in and communicate. And you have a few of them. It's called stellate ganglion. You have inferior cervical ganglion. You have your superior cervical ganglion. These nuclei of these nerves, now they wire into your vagus nerve, which is your parasympathetic. So if you can activate your vagus, you'll be able to regenerate better. You'll be able to heal better. Your organs will all work better. You'll be calmer. You'll sleep better, right? We can do an injection in there that basically will completely reset the nervous system and make you more parasympathetic. So because we're all running sympathetic all the time. I do an it's a special blend. I can do it with stem cells, and I can do it with kind of a special formula. Very, very safe. It's more scary than painful, but it's like unplugging the relax, regenerate system and rebooting it, and you get so relaxed. I've had people in absolute panic attacks, people with PTSD, people with insomnia. completely reset. Sometimes it's one and done. Sometimes you need a few rounds of it. When we do it with the lasers, when we do it with the stem cells, it really takes a deeper impact. And we have people that come, fly out to me just for anxiety. They're missing meetings. People that I'm losing millions of dollars because this. First thing I do is inject them in the neck. Resets them, levels them out, and then all of a sudden, then they can start to heal. You can't heal if you're regenerating. So the world's on fire, everything's on fire. And so you have to get a hold of that. Right. And you can do that through breath work. There's a lot of ways to do it. You can do it with binaural beats we spoke about earlier. You can do it in so many different sorts of ways, but everything has a cumulative effect. Right. And the thing is that people, I really want to impart this in people, that you're so powerful. You are creating reality. What you believe is true. Like the more you believe it, the more true it is. And so whether it's negative, positive, whether it's confidence in yourself, whether it's hatred or love, it is true, and your cells are on board. Your cells are entangled with you. They're literally doing what you want them to do, what you wish they do. And this is why it's very tough with people who are like hypochondriacs, right? People, oh my God, I'm gonna get this. Guess what? They get it. Eventually they do, because eventually that wall gets broken down, and then they develop the thing that they were scared of in the first place. And it sucks, and I've seen it over and over again. You are
what you believe you can achieve, both positively and negatively, right?
Yeah. I mean, doubt is its own kind of drug, and so is faith, right? And so we can, you can embrace that, and like I said, I think it's about participating. You show up, and there's a reason why you got there, and maybe it makes a lot of sense, and maybe really need to work with someone to help you figure that out. But at the same time, there's certainly a way out of it. People have probably had it worse and better, right? And still gotten out of it, right? So there's, the point is you're so powerful. And if what you believe, you are reinforcing every single day, all the time. And, when we have negative thought about us and stuff like that, I mean, we really have to have a filter for that, right? Because most people don't even really have the authority to judge us. And we let a lot of that come in. And if that starts to paint or change our mind state or our just energy, then that starts to become true too. Right. And so you have to pull out the thorns, and sometimes you just have to, get rid of people because they're bad drugs, right? Because they're influencing you in ways, and they're inflammatory. There is such a thing as inflammatory people, right? And that can cause autoimmunity. Go figure. So there's these papers about what's called Th17 response, that just being in really crappy relationships can cause autoimmunity, can lead in to autoimmunity, because what is autoimmunity? It's the opposite of self-love. It's self-destruction. Right. So if you love yourself more, well, you start to unwind this self-destruction or this self-destructive pattern.
If you think about it, to your point, I mean, people have been in bad relationships and whatever, but imagine yourself, and I know this from experience, but imagine yourself, you're all day at work or whatever you do, and unless you really love it, like I don't really work. I play video games all day. I consider me playing. This is my work. So it's a different world. But when I had my machinery business, which I built up over 30 years, stress, and you've got deadlines, you got this, you got that, and then you're supposed to come home, and that's your safe space. I'll use.
Supposed to be.
But you come home and you come to your sanctuary. Great, better word. You come home and you're in a bad relationship, and then it's just continuing that stress. It's like you can't do anything right, or you can't do this or that. So I can imagine how powerful that would be day in and day out. To your point, I just wanted to bring that up because, there was a point of time in living where it was like, I gaining weight and just, drinking more than I should. And, this and that. It's just because your sanctuary isn't safe anymore, man. You're in a bad relationship, and it's just beating the crap out of you day in and day out. And your body just starts to just dive in, or devolve, is a better word.
As above, so below. What's going on here will keep going on down there, and so you need to correct that and start to become the CEO of your health, the CEO of your life, the CEO of your soul. I
like what you're saying repeatedly, in that you've got to take part in your own health, and I don't think people do that, other than maybe they work out, they run, they try and eat better, but the whole doctor side of things. And to the James Show, which they come on. You notice we've got a couple of other podcasts on here, which is kind of cool to me anyway. Looks like this is they're on the YouTube as well. But we already know the answer to this. Can these therapies reduce the need for surgeries in the future?
They already do. They're doing it now. Yeah, right now
Yeah.
we're avoiding surgeries now. Not all of them. Let me say that very clearly.
And
we
on
are
top of
right
it,
now.
if you still need, and on top of it, if you still need surgery, you're better prepared for that. You know how they say, get ready for surgery. We were talking about this a minute ago, right?
Yeah. Do
So
a stem cell treatment before surgery. Yeah, if you have to have surgery, do a VSEL treatment before surgery. You will respond better.
What is the best
I've seen
setup
it over and over again.
to have? What is the best setup to have successful surgery? They talk about working out or whatever and getting ready for surgery.
They want to get you off like every supplement, right? First of all, have you seen those supplement lists? Like no fish oil, no vitamin C, no vitamin E, no vitamins, like no, just eat McDonald's and then come in for surgery. That's kind of the list.
Have a nice fried fish sandwich or something, right?
Yeah, well, they're doing it now. So I've been very blessed and then very grateful. Like I said, it's very humbling as well, just to be able to help people with that. Because I know what that's like. I've been on the surgical, I've had surgeries, but I've also, been there where it was like one of the most scariest decisions I've ever made. And that was the only decision because I had so much pain. And, it is my mission to get people to not have to deal with that.
We've got a few more questions here. And this one's an interesting one from Mac Atram. Thank you for this question because it's, they're talking about safety here, and I know we already know the answer, but let's bring that in. This is something new. We talked about this, right? This is things that our audience hasn't, and myself, the great middle class hasn't had. And by the way, please subscribe and like the episode, assuming you like it. I'm assuming you do. I mean, there's a lot of activity here, but the safety of what we're talking about is probably because you're using your own stuff from your own body. So, literally, it's probably the safest thing you can do. But he's asking, is this safer than traditional medicine? The answer is yeah. I'm sorry, I shouldn't lead. Answer the question.
Well, so, stem cell treatments are all different. When you're using your own tissue, it's pretty much always going to be safer. The way I've seen it, with VSELs, it's extremely safe. We put it everywhere. We put it all over the body. There's, some people can get like if there's like Lyme disease, stuff like that, sometimes people can get headaches and stuff. But again, we've polished the protocols so much that happens very little to zero at all. But as far as safety, like you're not going to reject it. You're not going to reject your own tissue. Stem cells off the shelf from some fetus. You can have a flu, you can have a fever. It can lead into cancer, into chimerism where you're having multiple parents. But they can show you cases where it's very safe. There's a lot of stuff where people aren't reacting to it, at least not today. We don't know 10, 15, 20 years down the road how you're going to react to having someone else's DNA integrating with yours. So this is what I do is not the off the shelf stuff. Exosomes now they're the bridge. So exosomes can be isolated from stem cells. They are very safe, it turns out, because they're just proteins. So what is an exosome? It is a vesicle.
Thank you.
Similar like a virus. It's kind of a container for growth factors that stem cells make. There's mitochondrial RNA, there's signaling RNA, but there's no cellular DNA. And that's very important because when they're in an environment, your body has enzymes that break down these things very, very quickly. That's why mRNA with the injections, they had to make hydrogels and all of this like lipid, nanosomal components so that your enzymes didn't break them down so they can make, get into the nucleus to hijack your cells. And that's why like they couldn't do it for 30 years and in 3 hours, all of a sudden they figured it out, but that's a whole nother story. But it's insane when you're like, that's what happened. And then you had 1 billion of them in a month. Okay. So yeah, when you're doing, foreign DNA,
you're funny too. Are you a comedian too? Do you ever do stand up? You've got a great sense of humor. Love it. Yeah, that's coming, right? You'll do it after one of the shows, one of these.
Yeah, well, if this doctor thing doesn't work out, I'm going to either try the rock star thing or I'll throw stand up.
Yeah, you got some options there, man. There's some really good clubs in San Diego too.
Yeah, I've been to. I love comedy for sure. Like laughter is medicine. I love free medicine. Go laugh. Go get some sunshine. Get clean, structured water if you can. Love on each other. Get grounded. Avoid, pick the battles that you can win. There's some low hanging fruit. If you can block some EMF, do that. But yes, exosomes are extremely safe, generally speaking. Now you want to get a certificate of analysis if you're going to get anything that's donor tissue. So exosomes.
We haven't talked about exosomes today, have we?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, I
Before
guess now's the time. They work as like loading the deck. So there's just more growth factors, more signaling molecules. You can do exosomes as a one-off therapy. I don't do a lot of one-offs with exosomes. I may stack the deck if I feel someone needs a deeper, regenerative response right away, or if there's a lot of regenerative debt, it helps pay some of those bills off right away. So if we have to do that, like we don't have a lot of treatments, we do that in one program, like 2 or 3 day maybe protocol. But yeah, extremely safe. You can inhale them, you can inject them everywhere. But that's not stem cells. So stem cells, if you're getting them off the shelf, you'll try to always get a certificate of analysis. Always make sure they're testing for all the viruses and HIV and Hep B and all this stuff. And see if anyone of a similar demographic, similar age range, or similar presentation, knee or shoulder, whatever it is, has done it, and what are the results, and what are the long-term results. I can tell you with VSELs, people they look younger, they feel younger. They're your own tissue, exactly. And we can put them all over, so extremely
and
safe.
why would you put them all over? Like, now I get the neck one and the stomach one you talked about, for the, I'm sorry. I need some of this stuff, my brain, for your product.
For the peptides.
Your peptides.
Yeah. So you can inject the whole body. I mean, the body is electric, right? So if you've ever done acupuncture, right, you understand. I have. Yeah. You understand that the body is a conductive system. It is electric, and it's all mapped out. I mean, these people mapped it out thousands of years ago, right? So it's nothing new about this.
Chinese famous for that.
There's nothing new about the body is electric, right? And so it's about unwinding the stagnant patterns in Chinese medicine. Stagnation is disease. So mosquitoes grow in a swamp; they don't grow in the river, right? So you want the flow, and so where there's areas of stagnation because of injury, because of trauma, because of surgeries, because of our own consciousness, or because of inflammatory people that we hold in certain areas. And there's all these sort of patterns. And we know that, the liver holds anger, the lungs hold grief, but you can actually get more precise with that. It's about getting the electric charge. So we can do what's called neural or perineural injections. Like the stellate is a neural injection, because we're affecting the nervous system. It's like a nerve block. We also do aesthetics too. So we do facial treatments, like hair treatments. We do sexual enhancement. We actually inject the penis. We inject the vagina, the clitoris.
Whoa! You inject the penis? Is that for erection?
For younger, stronger, bigger. In some cases, you can get some girth. But it's better erections, better blood flow. And again, we stack it with all kinds of things, right? We biostack, right? We stack as much as we can. It's all about the biostacking of it. And it just depends on the case, where we want to go, and what your goals are, what your trajectory is, where you're at. So we can inject joints. So a lot of joints we'll inject locally. We do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of work around the musculoskeletal system, muscles. Sometimes there's atrophy in muscles or tears. I had a guy get a rubber bullet in his hamstring, was training with Navy SEALs, and his hamstring popped, and so we injected it, and he was doing a lot of peptides. Oh yeah, he's like 100% now. Yeah, this guy's a beast. He's an absolute specimen of a human, but I mean. Yeah, I mean, he's out there, a few days later trying to continue training after he, blew his hamstring with a rubber bullet. But
that's crazy, man.
There are some. You got to know who you are. You got to know. Yeah. So I do a lot of joint injections. Like I said, sexual enhancement. We do aesthetics, facials. We do scar therapy. So scars can hold a lot of stagnation.
Let's get into that. But when you say facials, when you talk about that, is that for cleaning up the skin or getting rid of wrinkles, or I mean, what's that part of what we're talking about, as well as the scars? So will you literally get rid of scars and stuff like that?
Yeah, we work to clean them up. I mean, they can typically heal a lot better. Yeah. So a lot of times you'll see there's purpling, there's redness. They're not fully healing, even years later. There might be edges that are stagnant, and if you kind of try to move the tissue, it gets stuck there. That's not good for your energy, right? You need to have flow. You need to have that river flowing all throughout your body for your electric conductivity and for your efficiency. And especially C-section, women with C-section scars. I mean, those are really big, important scars to work on.
What about like tummy tuck scars? Same thing, right? That'd be the same sort of thing, right? Because that's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, so we call it aesthetic. So it looks better. So your face can look younger, feel younger. We can do it for wrinkles. We actually can make a gel out of your own plasma, and then we can put the VSELs in this. So the stem cells activated in your own gel. So it works like a filler, not like hyaluronic acid. This is real biological filler of your own that you can keep stem cells there for up to 2 weeks in a given area. So it just gets younger and younger and younger. It just works for you for better for longer. It has a more permanent
effect. A gel you put on that stays on for a while and just keeps
so in gel we inject in as a filler, so it fills in. It can fill in any wrinkles. It can fill in anywhere we want to. While it's staying there, so it'll fill it under the skin, and then stem cells will be there for 2 weeks. The tissue will start to grow and meet that. And so you get a younger, more plumper, more beautiful looking
skin. What about lips? What about the women who plump up their lips?
Yeah, we do lips. We do. I did not do mine. I was blessed with lips, I guess, but we do lips. It's super painful. I gotta say, it hurts like crazy.
Oh, it does. Well, it does either way. I mean, I don't do it, but producer Barbie, if you're listening, this might be a thing. Now, would it also like they do it from like fat, whatever they do, whatever. But would it then be something that lasts longer, or like you said with the wrinkles, the cells will grow into the space? Is that the same thing with lips, or is that more just getting the wrinkles around, or does it actually puff up and get that what you want, and then the cells will grow into it? Is that the same thing as the wrinkles you were talking about then?
Yeah, it's a similar solution.
That's
we just do
fascinating.
Different volumes, so you can plump them up really nice, and then as they get a little puffy at first, you lose maybe 25 to 50% of that puff, but then the really healthy, beautiful tissue grows up under it. So it's like these beautiful lips, like robust, thick, and we can kind of go as heavy-handed as you want. I mean, we can make them really thick, and then they'll kind of normalize over about.
Some women get crazy on that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, look, we get, so that's certainly more on the luxury side of things. But it's nice. I mean, you got to have confidence in yourself. I love doing this stuff. If I can empower you, and if that helps you be more yourself and to have a little bit more confidence and power, then I'm all about it. Same for men or for women. If you want to enhance your sexual, health, you have more sensation, bigger, younger, faster, stronger. All these things. And that's because life should be quality. You should have a quality of life. I don't play God. I don't choose when it's your time to come. But as we're here, while we're here, why not be as strong and as potent as possible? And just have life be easy.
Producer Barbie lives just north of you. I'm sorry. When we were first talking, I was thinking San Jose up in Northern California. You're down by San Diego.
Yeah,
right.
Correct. San Diego. Yeah.
South of San Diego.
North.
Yeah,
you're
north of San Diego.
About 45 minutes from the airport. Yeah. Kind of near Temecula. We're going up towards Temecula.
So she lives out there. She used to live. We used to both live in Chicago, and we went our separate ways. I'm in Oklahoma, so I got a little bit of a drive. But my kids are in the Pomona, Ontario area, so I might be setting something up with you after a bit. But producer Barbie, if you're listening. Which you either listen to it live or not, but she needs to hook up with you because those aesthetic parts are very important to people. And like you said, you're creating self-confidence and so forth. But she also has how some people get like skin disease, like cancerous
cells sunspots
skin.
Oh yeah, sure.
Well, I forget the name, but I mean stuff like that. If you're working within the skin, stuff like that, there are things worth at least talking about there because she has to get these scars, she has to get them surgically removed because they're cancerous. I mean, what about stuff like that? Is there, and I'm not asking you to say, hey, I'm just your opinion. Is that something like that we're talking about with somebody like her?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen the tissue heal even post surgical removal, post these, these procedures, these like Mohs procedures where they kind of like scrape, the outline and they
that's
kind
what
of
I'm talking about, Mohs.
Yeah.
You got to go all the way out to the outline.
Yeah. You have to get more than the margin just to make sure it doesn't come back. But yeah, like I said, I mean, in the literature, VSELs will be found around tumors. I've worked with people who have,
Wow.
these types of diagnoses, and it can certainly help their quality of life, can certainly help the skin come back. You obviously got to be careful when there's any, quote unquote cancer in the mix or a history of. I mean, that's all case by case, so that's all discussed one-on-one for sure.
That's why I said discuss. That's why I said discussed. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely worth a conversation. And we can just avoid it too. It's like, hey, if there's too much concern, we're like, yeah, okay, we won't put stem cells right there, but we can kind of go everywhere. We can affect the immune system. We can affect the liver. We can help, some of the other things that make you healthier, right? The skin has a lot to do with your detox. So if you're not detoxing appropriately, which is going to be your liver, your gut, your kidneys, and your lungs, and then your skin, obviously. So there are ways to help you out to unburden a particular area, So again, holistically, right? We're thinking of the whole picture, not just one spot on a face.
Yeah. Well, and I think more the case of what you're talking about, and we're getting close to wrapping up here. If you don't mind, I think we've gotten through all the questions here with this final comment. But I think when I talked about those, I mean, some people get something like that occasionally. I actually had one, which actually worked well for me because I have less wrinkles on my forehead because I had to do surgery, and so it actually worked out. I had a
tighten it up
forehead lift, but
nice.
She gets them all the time. She's had like 50 surgeries all over her body from this kind of thing.
Right. That's there's a reason for that, right? There's a reason for that. It's internal. It's not external. It's
and she doesn't know what. Nobody's ever been able to tell her.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can keep shaving it off, but if it's coming back, then it's going to keep coming back. You gotta dig deeper, and I don't mean cutting it out. I mean going inside.
Yeah, right, and maybe getting some of this therapy in, and then cleaning up that, and then eliminating future needs.
That would certainly be my approach. Yeah.
All right.
Get healthier,
my friend. Way healthier, and she hates it because she's I mean, this is a very beautiful woman. You'll see in a second, she's actually on the exit, not a second, in a little bit. She's actually on the exit video, producer Barbie. But she has to deal with that all the time. She's got, on her back, on her arms, it's in her system. Something is wrong in that system. And she has some ideas, but no doctors have even
Can I interrupt right there?
Yeah, sure.
So you said something I disagree with. I don't think anything about what's happening is wrong. I think it's absolutely perfect. That is one of the big things where we come from, at least from my philosophy, is that everything that's happening to your body is perfect. There's a perfect reason for it. You may not like it, you may not want it, but it's certainly perfect. All of the things, if you could account for all of the variables, this is actually trying to help you. It's actually in love and compassion, part of your survival instinct. For some reason, her survival instinct is to put this off. So probably there's a toxic load inside of her that needs to come out, right? It's probably parasites, quite honestly. But so if you look, and most first world doctors know nothing about parasites. It's very, very sad because pretty much everyone's got them, and so they're very contributory to inflammation. They can represent or look like cancer because they'll make cysts, and they may probably be misdiagnosed all the time. So anyway, my point is, and I just wanted to say this because there's nothing wrong with her body. It's perfect. In fact, it's survival and it's keeping her alive with compassion and love. We just need to figure out why that program is running.
That's awesome. I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I collect on that. I love that.
Barbara, there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you can figure it out. You let me know.
I'm going to make sure she listens to the back part of this, and I'm going to try and edit that little comment that I made out of there and just,
Look, it's all about reframing. It's all about reframing, right? Understanding where we're at, because we're creating reality. Like we take a breath in and then we create with our words. Our words are creating reality every moment, right? So we have to be impeccable where we can with our speech, right? I'm a big believer of the 4 Agreements. Great book. Go read that one if you haven't. But so I think I like that. I had to say something because I hear that from patients all the time. It's like, well, something's broken or wrong. And it's like, no. Let's reframe that, because once you change your perspective, you change your reality, then you can get your power back. But if you're giving it out, it's like, oh, well, there's something's, you're listening to that naysayer, right? That Xer that was just berating you, that unsafe place. It's that same language. We don't get healthy with that language, right? We get, our I am statements are, those are the most powerful ones. So, I am not broken. I am perfect, but there's a reason for this.
That is perfect. Well, here, I mean, to Leia's point, loving this live show, great chemistry between us, and between the audience, between you and I, and loving that chemistry, and I love your approach, and not only the technology that you're providing to people to heat for their bodies to heal themselves, but also that approach that you're talking about in that you're not giving out the energy. Your body is perfect. Your body loves you. Something's happening. We just need to be able to adjust how the body is able to react to that. How to, like you said, the things that that she's going through is the body doing its best to flush out whatever it is that you've got that needs to be adjusted. How's that for a response?
That's beautiful. Yeah, that is beautiful. You're a fast learner. I love it.
I'm catching up. All right.
Great.
So is there anything that we missed right now? I've got I wanted to pull this one back. I got to get rid of this one. Actually, I can just delete that because that's delete the comment. So I got rid of that comment. Silver scrubs. Obviously, this is the wearable items, and we'll talk a little bit because I want to get that beautiful hat you got there, and that's spelled correctly, right? And then of course this is now in this is this where people can contact you regarding
an appointment or something.
Yeah, for your appointment or joining your private not club
membership.
Membership. Is this able to be found on all of that?
Yeah. So that's my website. I actually just launched 3 weeks ago. I did not have a website literally until about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It just launched.
Oh wow.
Like I said, it's all been word of mouth, and I've been very busy, thankfully and gratefully. And now I'm at a place where I have a bigger staff. I can like take on so much more. But so that you can find me there, OptimumWellnessNatural.com. That is my kind of my practice website. It'll tell you a little bit about the membership thing. Really, it's kind of a place just to get some information and send an email, and then we'll open up the dialogue. Now you got to be careful with what you say on the internet. So it's safe, and it's there, and it's just a landing page right now to just reach out, get some information, and then if people want to find me, they can send an email to info@OptimumWellnessNatural.com, and that's on the website. And then we'll just tell me a little bit about your case, your story, what where you are, where you want to go, and we'll see if we're a good fit, and we can jump on a discovery call or something.
Beautiful. Well, if you have aside from that, do you have any lasting final thoughts? I'll throw you back in not physically because you're too big. I can't get you there.
Yeah, well, look, I
throw you back
appreciate
in the
this.
green room.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation. Thank you for having me. It was, a lot. We covered a lot of topics, so we may need to to do it again sometime. But look, I think you are powerful. I think you need to, sometimes we have to reframe some things. We have to, get our power back. But love, oxygen, water, sunshine. Those are the most important things. Make sure we have the basics in line. Arm yourself where you can. I do make the silver products. We're working on some, expanding the line. I make the hats. And Rod, I'll send you some swag here. You can represent if you like. And then the silver scrubs.
I'm going to be wearing it on the show. I'm going to be advertising for you. Maybe we ought to work together.
There we go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, no worries. I make the blankets, so I'm making more EMF protective stuff. I make the cell phone pouches. They're great for your sleep. I'm making peptides blends, and so we're working on the Warrior blend. It's the master stack.
What does that cost? If you don't mind me asking, are you ready to talk about it?
Well, it's still fresh. I got to put up the website right now. It's for members only right now, so you do have to become a member.
Okay.
It's powerful stuff. It's $550 retail, and then we can do discounts on larger orders, stuff like that. So, but it's 7 peptides in one.
How many times do you inject that? How many times do you inject that when you, let's say I purchased it, it came in the mail today.
It's about a month's supply. It's about a month's supply.
Okay.
You get 5 days on, 2 days off typically. And I'll walk you through. This is why you got to be a member, because I want to give you more specifics, because everyone's a little bit different. And then I can give you some guidelines around that.
Perfect.
Well, thanks.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
Why don't you give your fan club here, Still, where are we at? 2 hours and 40 minutes, and we still have a ton of people hanging out, listening to us just kind of chit chat. Give everybody a big wave, and I'll meet you in the green room in a minute.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
As promised, folks. As promised, I told you this was fascinating. We were at one point hovering right around 1,000 people, and I know the comments are evidentiary to the fact that there's a lot of need in this area. And then at the end, my God, we got into a whole nother part of putting. To me, what makes a lot more sense, if you're going to go out and have, the cosmetic type things that we have done to our bodies in today's world, then you should use the things that come from your body to do that, right? So fascinating stuff. And I'm just honored. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate everything that you've laid out for us. And this is Insights and Straight Talk. My name's Rod Duff, and I'm out. Oh, I did that wrong. Let me try it again. I'm Rod Duff, and I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here, and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.